Come by here, Lord. Come by here. Come by here, Lord. Come by here. Hey, T Birds. Hey, 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 hey. Come, come, come. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I promise you can be researching one thing and then some more other stuff pop out. So I'm going to start here because it's a bunch of lying. They got us thinking boats that's going through the Strait of Hormuz, and it ain't. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Oh my goodness, well, let's hop in here and see what's going on. This is right now about the 25th Amendment. We're going to pop in and see what they got to say. Lord, I hope I'm not going to be up all night. I am so tired. But let's go and hop in here. I ain't stalling. Let's go.
I'm joined now by Congressman Jamie Raskin. Congressman, thanks for joining me.
It's great to see you, Ryan.
So a few days ago, you and I had spoken about the 25th Amendment, which has kind of surged onto the scene in the aftermath of Donald Trump basically threatening genocide against the entire Iranian population. You had actually discussed the issue with the Democratic caucus. Can you explain what happened in that discussion?
Well, it was an agitational session and the beginning of a strategy discussion. It was really a terrific dialogue that we had. But I explained the language and the structure and the history of the 25th Amendment, which a lot of people are not familiar with. It was added to the Constitution in 1967. Senator Birch Bayh was the one who promoted it heavily, but he was working closely with Senator Robert F. Kennedy, whose brother, President John F. Kennedy, had been assassinated 5 years before. But there was a lot of discussion about problems of succession, continuity, stability in government. And so Section 1 of the 25th Amendment is about filling a presidential vacancy with the vice president. This Section 2 is about filling a vice presidential vacancy by way of nomination by the president and then concurrent majority vote.
Now, you know, we noticed when he was spazzing out of control, just being all over the place, saying anything, J.D. Vance kind of removed himself from that. He ain't want no parts of it. You know, and it was setting the presidents up at that time of trying to replace him. But frankly, I prefer a whole new cabinet. I say get rid of all of them, Vance too. But he is playing into what's going on, and because they play too much, they stage too much, they lie too much. For me, you know, some people like to lie for entertainment and all that type of stuff. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. I prefer a whole new cabinet, but I guess we're gonna have to get what we can get. But carry on, cause he showed trying to play it up like he is the best of two evils. You know, I don't know about that, but let's carry on, cause it seemed like that's where he finna go with this conversation. And you know, the lies are still out there, cause they trying to act like they done U.S. ships have went through the Strait of Hormuz, and they saying that ain't true. They saying that ain't true. But carry on.
House and the Senate. Section 3 is, I think I mentioned to you before, the colonoscopy provision, which allows for a voluntary temporary relinquishment of the powers of the office by the president to the vice president in the event of surgery, anesthesia, or for any reason. And then at the point at which the inability to serve ends, then the president can just attest to that and take the power back. But what America's been talking about is Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, which is the part which says that the vice president and a majority of the cabinet can decide that the president is unable to successfully discharge the powers and duties of office. And that could be for medical reasons, it could be for physical, mental, psychological. The president could go missing. Who knows? It could be any number of things. And then they would have the power to transfer the power of the president to the vice president. And that lasts until the inability ends or the president shows up and attests that it's okay. And at that point, it would take a 2/3 requirement of the House, 2/3 vote in the House and 2/3 vote in the Senate to repudiate a presidential declaration that he was actually fit. But what I've been pointing out is that the 25th Amendment also says the vice president can do the same thing with a majority of a body set up by Congress. So it's a way of bypassing the cabinet and saying Congress can set up a body. And I've introduced legislation before, back in 2017 and 2020, which I'm introducing again this week, to set up a permanent, ongoing body that would be there in the event of a problem with this or any other president.
Okay, so in terms of this body, the legislation moving forward, does that require a simple majority in the House, and does it have to exceed the 60 vote threshold in the Senate? Is it something that just the House unto itself can create? How does this work?
No, this is of statutory creation, so it would require a vote by the House, a vote by the Senate, and a presidential signature. But again, this is not targeted at any one particular president. There's no reason anybody should object to it. The 25th Amendment itself calls for the creation of such a body. It's in the Constitution itself, saying the vice president and a majority of the cabinet, or the vice president and a majority of another body set up by Congress. And Congress never set the body up. So my proposal has 17 members. 16 of them are divided between former executive branch officials, presidents, vice presidents, attorneys general, secretaries of state or defense, treasury. And then the other 8 would be physicians, psychologists, psychiatrists, people with medical training. And then together, all of these people would form the body, and they would choose a 17th member who would become the chair.
Is there some concern, though, that, it doesn't seem like this is something that Trump would ever put his signature on, recognizing that it would feel like a coup against him?
Well, first of all, nothing ever happens in the 25th Amendment field without the consent and cooperation and involvement of the vice president. So certainly with J.D. Vance, for the next couple of years, he's got nothing to worry about. The commission itself is a bipartisan commission. So half of the 16 members are appointed by majority leaders in the House and Senate, and half are appointed by minority leaders in the House and the Senate. So that's scrupulously bipartisan, and then together they would choose a chair who, would be the 17th member.
Is there anybody in the Republican conference that, as far as you know, is interested in adopting something like this, especially in the aftermath of Trump's comments about Iran?
Well, what's interesting is I was introducing this stuff during the first Trump administration, and then towards the end of the Biden administration, they started talking about Biden's health and his cognitive state. They were claiming he was senile and so on, leaving aside whatever factual speculation they're engaged in. A number of them came to me and said, why don't you put your bill back in? And I said, you know what, if you guys introduce the bill, you've got the majority, I'll co-sponsor it because I believe in it. But you guys take the lead right now. And, that shows you there's always political complexities around doing something with the 25th Amendment, because it always looks like it's a hit on the person who happens to be in office. But, hey, the founders of the 25th Amendment, which is to say people who were around in the 1960s, were emphatic that we needed this because they said we had 535 members of Congress and one president. And, the president is usually in their, 50s, 60s, 70s. Trump is now in his 80s. And so there are lots of things that can happen.
Congressman, have any Republicans approached you, not publicly but privately, to express their concern with Trump's mental state?
No. But I know several have been very upset about the war, about the circumvention of congressional war powers, and also about the decision making in the war. So I have had some quiet conversations with a handful of Republicans about that. So
enough to take an action against him, or just enough to kind of murmur behind the scenes, but not dare invite the ire of the God King?
Well, I think that's right.
My name is Chef Tajani, and what I'm about to share with you sounds
it's murmurings at this point.
Yeah.
But, I will say that, we ended up having 10 House Republicans vote for impeachment after the insurrection took place, and 7 in the Senate voted to convict. And we're beginning to see relatively serious fractures take place in the Republican Party. And when you've got Tucker Carlson, who is at least the most popular political communicator in their party, if not the most popular political leader,
Get him out.
attacking Trump over the Iran war. When you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was his most faithful sycophant and zealot, saying that he's, quote, gone insane, we're hoping that some Republicans would be willing to break ranks on this. It doesn't take many. Remember, we're just down 3 votes at this point.
Right.
Just 3. Oh my God, so close.
In politics, it feels like it happens really slowly and then all at once. Does this feel like that moment for Trump and his support? Does it feel like the bottom is falling out, or does it feel like, look, there have been a lot of false starts. There have been a lot of we got him now, only for him to, just,
Hi, Kelly.
for support to coalesce around him, for, these defected Republicans to come back home. Nothing that a nice shiny dinner at Mar-a-Lago can't fix, but does it feel like this is a moment where he's permanently losing some support and the bottom's falling out?
Well, as you say, Brian, it ain't over till it's over. I mean, we thought the 2020 election was over after the ballots were finally counted, and it was clear that Biden beat him by 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College, and it went all the way up to January 6, 2021, with the massive violent insurrection backing up an inside coup. And then even then, people were saying they were going to try to do the same thing on Inauguration Day. So, yeah, it's really not over till it's over. And like a horror movie, even when you think it's over, it's not necessarily over.
Yeah.
I think it would clearly be premature for anybody to say that. On the other hand, the direction of events is really clear right now. The president's poll numbers are sinking like a stone. His political support is melting away all over the country. And we have been steadily winning elections all over America. I was just with Emily Gregory, who became the new representative for Palm Beach County. Yeah. She represents Donald Trump in the Florida State House. We, had a 30-point switchover in a race in Texas for the state Senate, and just dramatic, historic victories for Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey. If you add up all the elections we've had over the last year, Democrats are up like 13 or 14 points over where they were in the comparable election in the prior cycle.
To that end, we're seeing a lot of these Democrats overperform and win their elections and flip seats across the country. If I'm not mistaken, Republicans haven't flipped a single seat, but Democrats have flipped numerous seats across the country. Is there some concern that by engaging in a process like either the 25th Amendment or impeachment, that it can redound to Trump's benefit because it will feel like, it will kind of sort people into the usual D versus R food fight, where where Trump gets to say, look, they're coming after me, and it's it's the Democrats versus the Republicans. You're either with me or you're against me, and this is politics as usual. Is there some concern that, and we saw that, by the way, with some of with some of the prosecution post 2020 election, where Trump was able to garner some of that support back because it felt like he could martyr himself and draw people back onto his side. And so, can you just talk on that idea, on the unfortunate byproduct of possibly engaging in 25th Amendment talks or impeachment talks when Democrats are winning anyway, might distract from what is otherwise an organic series of victories playing out.
You're one of my favorites.
There
Thank
is
you, Kelly.
a risk, indisputably, that
I greatly
any
appreciate it.
focus on Donald Trump's crimes or his apparent mental unfitness for office would redound to his benefit, because he could go back to the base and rally people around him when that base is fracturing right now. And I think people are aware of that. Of course, there is an obverse risk that if you ignore it,
Thank you, Mrs. Holm.
people will say, how is it that you can allow these things to happen without actually doing anything, even with the limited panoply of responsive mechanisms available to you in the Constitution? So I think that that's the Scylla and Charybdis we've got to walk with. It can't be a fetish for us, but on the other hand, it can't be a taboo for us either. It's not a panacea, but it's also not something we need to be afraid of. We have impeached Donald Trump twice before, proving that we can do it, we will do it. We're not afraid of that.
Get
the
him
Senate
out.
did not live up to its responsibility and did not convict him. So what I take away from your basic point, which I agree with, is that we must look at it not just as a legal matter, which it is, whether he's committed impeachable offenses, high crimes and misdemeanors like treason and bribery. It's not just a legal matter in the sense of, can he successfully discharge the powers and duties of office? A lot of us have been convinced for a long time that he can't. But it is also a political question, and it's meant to be a political question, because the framers did not say a president who's allegedly committed impeachable offenses or allegedly can no longer do the job should be taken to court. He's taken to Congress. And so Congress has got to decide, with all of the competing policy priorities that exist, and also with the clear constitutional logic and understanding that there will be another election soon. So we've got to put all those things together. There's nothing illegitimate about talking about that. That's built into our system.
Yeah, well, we will leave it there, Congressman. That's obviously, given your background teaching constitutional law at American University, that's analysis that most people aren't going to be able to give. So I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, as always, Brian. Bye-bye.
Okay, hold on. Hold on, y'all. Please hit the like button. What is this? Okay, so I have that one set. I got that one. Let's hear what he had to say today with his line ass. Let's go.
And heading out to our country. First, this Fox News alert. President Trump is getting ready to leave the White House to head for Florida. Let's listen. We win. We've totally defeated that country. And so let's see what happens. Maybe they make a deal, maybe they don't. From the standpoint of America, we win. One of the things that's happening is that boats are sailing up and heading out to our country. Big, beautiful tankers, and we're loading them up with oil and gas and everything else, and it's a pretty beautiful thing to see.
What did he say?
First,
That's
Fox News
loud.
alert: President Trump is getting ready to leave the White House to head for Florida. Let's listen. We win. We've totally defeated that country. And so let's see what happens. Maybe they make a deal, maybe they don't. From the standpoint of America, we win. One of the things that's happening is that boats are sailing up and heading out to our country. Big, beautiful tankers, and we're loading them up with oil and gas and everything else. And pretty beautiful thing to see. We're going to see what happens. We're in very deep negotiations with Iran. We win regardless. We've defeated them militarily. They've dropped a couple of water mines. You call them water mines in the boat. We've defeated all of their water boats too. Their Navy has gone 158 ships. They have 28 water droppers, mine droppers they call them. All of them are sunk. They probably have a couple of mines in the water. We have mine sweepers out there. We're sweeping the strait. In addition to that, we're negotiating. Whether we make a deal or not makes no difference to me. And the reason is because we've won. Whether you listen to the fake news or not, you know, it's amazing. Their credibility is down to 13%. The media credibility down to 13%. Think of it. We defeated their Navy. We defeated their Air Force. We defeated their anti-aircraft. We defeated their radar. We defeated their leaders. Their leaders are all dead. And now all we do is we'll open up the strait even though we don't use it because we have a lot of other countries in the world that do use it that are either afraid or weak or cheap. I don't know what it is, but we were not helped by NATO, that I can tell you. How do you know that? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? You don't know anything. Who are you with?
NBC News doing circuit.
ABC?
NBC.
Well, let's make news. Let me just tell you. We win, no matter what. We've defeated their military. They have no
lies.
158 ships are underwater, undersea. All of their mine sweepers and all of their, they call them mine droppers. Can you imagine? A country has 28 mine droppers. You think that's nice? With all of that being said, they're all defeated, by the way. They're all at the bottom of the sea. Now, with all of that, they have no Navy. They have no radar. They have no Air Force. Their leaders are all dead. Khomeini is gone. For many years, he ruled. He's gone. With all of that, let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care. Well, if China does that, China could have big problems. Okay?
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on...
Hold on. I'm sorry. I was doing two things at once. Somebody over there talking about me on their platform. Why she talking about me? I don't know. White House should be hard. Let me hear this before I get into.
As we conclude 6 weeks of war with Iran, President Trump's economic
6
promises
weeks.
are colliding with reality.
Our president does
inflation
not.
and make America affordable again. We're going to get the prices down. We
Does
have to
not
get them
say I
down.
don't
It's too
care.
much.
Trump did not quickly defeat inflation. We just had our largest inflation spike in years at 3.3%, thanks to Trump's war of choice with Iran. And then there's gas prices.
Gasoline for your car is going to be 50%
Lying.
cheaper than it is right now.
Also not true. Trump has triggered the largest one-month gas price increase in decades. Prices are up 30% since before the war, more than $1 per gallon. Same story for the price of oil.
Going from an average of $75 to $80 barrel of oil, which we've been suffering through in Biden land, back down towards 50, where we were with Trump.
That price is roughly double what Peter Navarro promised, regularly surpassing $100 per barrel. And the White House insisted the broader economy would be booming by now.
In the fourth quarter of 2025, this economy is going to be humming.
The data and your lives probably tell a very different story. GDP growth plummeted in the fourth quarter of 2025 from 4.4% to just 0.5%, far below estimates. And remember those trade deals they promised?
90 deals in 90 days is possible.
Right now, we're at more like 9 deals in 1 year. So far, we have formal agreements with just 9 countries, only one of which is with a major U.S. trading partner, Taiwan. And we have frameworks or interim frameworks with another 10 countries. So let's do a quick recap. Trump's promise to end inflation failed.
Lies.
Cheaper gas, hardest failure in decades. Cheaper oil, hardest failure in decades. Number 2, GDP growth, big fat failure. 90 trade deals in 90 days, historic failure for an assignment Trump came up with himself. You guys, shout out to John Ball, our producer, for putting that all together, because it shows that almost everything they're saying about the economy is not true. Wasn't coming true. Wasn't true when they said it. It hasn't become true after months and months of waiting.
Or one might say a lie. Yes, a complete lie. When you said that they promised that the economy would be booming by now, what people didn't realize was that they meant kaboom. The poll numbers show that this alternate reality that they're trying to force on the American people isn't working. This is E4, Trump's handling of prices since taking office. There's been a 25% increase in disapproval. In January, he had a 45% approval rating. Now in April, a 29% approval rating. The disapprove is at 64%. And then, if you look at the approval change among Republicans for Trump handling of prices.
You're obsessed with, because why?
Because that's all he cares about. He only cares about what Republicans think. It's an 18-point drop since January, since he came back to office in January of 25. For a president who cares only about what Republicans think, and particularly his MAGA base thinks, those numbers should scare them. Should, you know.
And if you're reading the tea leaves of what the Federal Reserve is doing, which is keeping interest rates up, not accommodating these higher oil prices, it shows, it potentially forecasts that there's going to be an even worse economic repercussions here than we saw in the 1970s when we had a similar oil shock.
No matter what they try to say, what they try to do, I learned this during the Joe Biden presidency. Joe Biden learned this the hard way. At the end of the day, you cannot force people to rethink their lived reality. Right? Like the money that's leaving their pockets every day, they know how much it is. They know how much gas is. They know how much rent is. They know how much health care is. They know what when they have to steal from Peter to pay Paul. They know what that feels like and what that's like, and you can't trick them. And Donald Trump has spent years, including in his first term as president, essentially tricking people to be convinced of something that wasn't true, right? It works in real estate, right? It works when you're in business and you're like, we got the best thing and everyone wants it, sure. But it's completely different when the American people have to live with the reality of what you're doing.
And Jackie, you mentioned the Federal Reserve and interest rates. The idea that interest rates will be cut now, which is something that the president really, really wants and is trying to get rid of the current Fed chair, Jerome Powell, because he won't cut rates. And he's got his own guy, I think Mr. Warsh, who he wants to be the Fed chair, who I guess he's assuming will cut rates. How are you going to do that?
But by the way, it's not going to be confirmed until the Justice Department and U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro decide and publicly announce that they're no longer going to pursue.
Okay, y'all ready to go? I'm trying to wait for y'all to get the lights up so we can go in and get some getting some understanding of what's going on with Melania now.
Oh, just wait till 60% increase in gas
And who
prices.
finna come in and flip the table?
See pitchforks in the street. We're gonna have to leave
I'm gonna
it
start
there.
biking.
You know you're not.
We can. Let me see. Do I? Which one am I going to? Dang, which one? Let's hear this. Oh, Wolf. Oh, man. I don't know why I didn't get a picture of him. Let's go.
We know that she's unhappy about my lawsuit against her, but probably even more so
Michael
unhappy
Wood.
with her lawyers who have...
She
We know that she's unhappy about my lawsuit against her, but probably even more so unhappy with her lawyers who have gotten her into a legal situation that she can't control because I am suing her. The lawsuit
suing
is now
her.
in front of a federal judge, and we are waiting
Malaria.
for a decision on
Who is
their
malaria?
need to have the case dismissed, which we don't think has a chance. But
Wait a minute,
is
what we
this
talking about?
an effort to influence
What we doing?
the judge?
Our president
It's a Trump judge, by the way.
does
Or
not say, I
intimidate
don't
the
care.
judge.
Hey, welcome back. If you've been following this channel, you know we don't do sensationalism for the
Hey,
sake of it.
Mohammed.
We follow the facts, we follow the law, and we follow the money. And today, all three of those trails lead directly to one woman, Melania Trump, and to a legal situation that, according to the man suing her, she cannot control, no matter how hard she tries. So here is what we are going to do today. We are going to walk through everything: the lawsuit, the press conference, the legal implications, and most critically, what author and journalist Michael Wolff said in direct response to Melania's very public, very unusual statement. Because what Wolff said wasn't just opinion. It was a forensic dissection of a woman who has spent decades controlling her narrative, and who right now appears to be losing that control for the very first time.
Yep.
Let's start from the beginning, because context matters enormously here. Michael Wolff is not a random blogger, he is one of the most prominent political journalists and authors in the United States. He wrote Fire and Fury, the explosive behind-the-scenes account of Donald Trump's first term in the White House, which sold millions of copies worldwide and fundamentally changed how the world perceived that administration. He's been a controversial figure, yes, but controversial in the way that powerful people become controversial when someone decides to tell the truth about them. Now Wolff has turned his lens directly onto Melania Trump, and the result has been nothing short of a legal and political firestorm. The lawsuit at the center of all of this stems from Wolff's work that connects Melania to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, a scandal that has, over the past several years, implicated some of the most powerful people on the planet. The question of who knew what, who visited where, and who was connected to Epstein's network has become one of the defining investigative stories of our time, and Melania Trump, as the wife of a man who was photographed with Epstein on multiple occasions, has not been immune to scrutiny. But here's where things get really interesting. Rather than simply denying any connection, or allowing her legal team to quietly handle the matter, Melania Trump reportedly threatened Michael Wolff. She wanted him silenced. She wanted his work stopped. She deployed what Wolff himself describes as the same industrial-scale intimidation tactics she has used against journalists, publishers, and media organizations for years. And Wolff, unlike many before him, did not back down. Instead, he did something that clearly nobody expected. He sued her back. Let that sink in for a moment. A journalist threatened by the First Lady of the United States responded not by retreating, but by filing a lawsuit in federal court. That is the situation we are in right now. And that case is sitting in front of a federal judge, awaiting a decision on Melania's team's motion to have it dismissed. Wolff says he doesn't think that motion has a chance. And what happened next, what Melania did publicly, is what has everyone talking. She held a press conference as First Lady about an active, ongoing federal lawsuit in which she is a party. Now,
She
if
didn't
you know
mention
anything
that
about how the
lawsuit.
legal system works,
She didn't
you are
mention that
already raising
lawsuit,
your
y'all.
eyebrows, because there is a
Did
concept
y'all, do
in
y'all
law
remember
well
her
established in
mentioning the lawsuit? No, she did not. She did not. And she definitely did not mention no poly relationship. What? What? Oh, that hadn't came up yet? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Let me back that thing. She did not mention anything about a lawsuit. No, sir. We did, but she didn't. Let's go.
Press conference. As First
Hey,
Lady,
Beverly.
about an active, ongoing federal lawsuit in which she is a party. Now, if you know anything about how the legal system works, you are already raising your eyebrows. Because there is a concept in law, well established in both American and international legal tradition, called sub judice. It means that once a matter is before the courts, parties to that case, and indeed anyone who might influence the proceedings, are expected not to make public statements that could prejudice the outcome.
You're
The idea
horrible.
is simple. You don't try your case in the media when
You're
it's supposed to be
horrible.
tried in a courtroom.
I'm so proud.
The judge decides, not public opinion, not press conferences, not viral videos.
I'm
Melania held a press
horrible.
conference anyway.
The
Michael
truth
Wolff,
is
when
not
asked about it,
horrible.
did not mince words. He started by saying, and this is critical, that her statement contradicts.
Oh
Right, in a
no,
courtroom.
we gon'
The
know
judge
the truth.
decides,
The truth gonna
not
set us
public
free.
opinion, not press conferences, not viral videos. Melania Trump held a press conference anyway, and Michael Wolff, when asked about it, did not mince words.
Hold
He
up,
started
hold
by
up.
saying,
Did y'all hear? Oh, okay, hold up, sir. I'm sorry. I told y'all I have so much. Oh, this thing is coming on. Have y'all hear? He sent her a little, incognito message. He posted a video of somebody head getting a bus to the white meat with a hammer. Did y'all hear that? That he did a upload about some gruesome about a lady head getting bust to the white meat by way of a hammer. After she did that video on the cool, letting her know what will happen to you. What the are you doing? Did they have an argument or something? Did he get caught? What? I said, what? Let me pull that up. Let me let him talk and then I'm going to pull it up. I'm rebooting my tablet. Child.
and
Thank
this is critical,
you.
that her statement contradicts much of the evidence, contradicts the known timeline, and contradicts much of what Epstein himself has
I don't know
directly said about her.
how.
That is an extraordinary
Thank you for the
claim.
flowers.
When a journalist at the center of a
Thank
lawsuit
you
says that
for
the
helping me
defendant's
reach
public
my goal,
statement
Miss
contradicts
Tom.
what Epstein directly said about her,
Hold on,
that is
y'all.
not a throwaway line.
Hold
That
on.
is
I'm
a
going to back it up.
started by saying, and this is critical, that her statement contradicts much of the evidence, contradicts the known timeline, and contradicts much of what Epstein himself has directly said about her. Now that is an extraordinary claim.
She
When a
busted.
journalist at the center of a lawsuit says that the defendant's public statement contradicts what Epstein directly said about her, that is not a throwaway line. That is a substantive legal and factual allegation. It tells us that Wolff has access to material, documents, testimony, recordings, something, that he believes directly undercuts whatever Melania said at that press conference. But Wolff didn't stop there. He went further, and what he said next reveals a pattern of behavior that goes well beyond this one lawsuit. He pointed out that Melania has fiercely tried to protect and control the details of her life ever since she arrived in New York in the 1990s. This is a well-documented pattern. When the Daily Mail published a piece that suggested Melania had worked as an escort before her modeling career took off, she did not simply deny it and move on. She sued them. She went after them with the full weight of legal resources that comes with being married to a billionaire, and she extracted a settlement and a public apology. The Daily Mail retracted and apologized. Now you might say, well, if it wasn't true, she had every right to
Trump
sue.
is
And that's fair.
incompetent and lying
But Wolff's
fool
point is about the
and a
pattern,
dealer.
not
Yes,
just the individual
Will.
incident. Because the Daily Mail was not the only target. Wolff describes what he calls an almost industrial-scale operation of threatening letters sent to virtually anyone who connects Melania to Jeffrey Epstein. Think about that framing. Industrial scale. This is not a woman who occasionally pushes back on unfair coverage. This is, according to Wolff, a systematic, organized, and aggressive campaign to legally intimidate anyone who dares to draw a line between her name and Epstein's. And yet, and this is the part that Wolff keeps coming back to, we have all seen the pictures. There are photographs of Melania and Epstein at various social events, photographs that connect the two of them in ways that cannot simply be wished away with a threatening letter or a defamation suit. So when Wolf says she has been sending these letters to anyone who connects her to Epstein, while photographs connecting her to Epstein are publicly available and widely circulated, what he is describing is a gap, a chasm really, between the image she is trying to project and the documentary record that already exists. That gap is at the heart of his lawsuit, and that gap is, according to him, precisely why she cannot simply make this go away. Now let's talk about what Wolf said about the press conference itself and his theory about why she did it. He posed the question directly, why now? Why would the First Lady of the United States hold a public press conference about an active federal lawsuit at this specific moment? And he offered several answers, each more damaging than the last. His first and most pointed theory is that this was an attempt to influence the judge. He stated this plainly. He noted that the judge overseeing this case is a Trump-appointed judge, and he flagged that deliberately because it raises the question of whether Melania's team believes that going public, generating sympathy, or framing the narrative in a particular way might resonate with a judge who was appointed by her husband. Whether or not that theory is correct, the allegation itself is explosive. A sitting First Lady, using a public platform, potentially trying to shape the environment around a federal judge's decision in a case in which she is the defendant. If that is what happened, it represents a breathtaking disregard for the integrity of the legal process. And Wolf connected this to the broader theme of his lawsuit. He said, and these are striking words, that intimidation is exactly what his case against her is about. In other words, the press conference, far from being a defense against the lawsuit, may actually be evidence for it. If your lawsuit alleges that someone has a pattern of using intimidation and public pressure to suppress unfavorable information, and that person then holds a press conference in the middle of the lawsuit that appears designed to apply pressure to a federal judge, you have just handed your opponent exactly the kind of material they needed. Whether intentionally or not, Melania may have walked directly into a trap of her own making.
She did.
Wolf described her approach as reflecting what he called a Soviet bloc sense of how the law ought to work. That is a sharp phrase, and it's worth sitting with it for a moment. What he means is that in certain authoritarian political traditions, the law is not a neutral arbiter. It is a tool of the powerful, deployed to protect those in authority and silence those who challenge them. The idea that you use legal threats not to seek justice but to produce fear, to make people calculate that fighting back is too expensive, too dangerous, too complicated. That is the model Wolf is describing. And it's a model, he argues, that Melania has been operating under for years, well before she became First Lady. This brings us to three specific cases of alleged legal intimidation that deserve serious scrutiny. The first is the Daily Beast. Melania Trump reportedly threatened the Daily Beast, one of America's most prominent online news publications, over its coverage connecting her to the Epstein network. The Daily Beast has been one of the more aggressive outlets in pursuing the Epstein story, including its connections to powerful political figures. Threatening a major media organization over that kind of coverage is not a small thing. It sends a message not just to the Daily Beast, but to every reporter, every editor, and every publication watching, that pursuing this story comes with consequences. That is a chilling effect on press freedom, and it is worth naming it as such. The second target was James Carville, one of the most prominent Democratic political strategists in the United States, the man who helped Bill Clinton win the presidency, a fixture of American political commentary for 3 decades. Carville made public comments connecting Melania to the Epstein story, and reportedly received legal threats in response. Now think about what it means when the First Lady's legal team targets someone like James Carville. He is not a fringe blogger. He is not an anonymous social media account. He is a major public figure with a long record and significant resources of his own. Threatening someone like Carville signals one of two things: either extraordinary confidence that the legal threats will succeed, or extraordinary desperation that the story must be suppressed at any cost. Given the context, Wolf would argue it is the latter. The third target was HarperCollins UK, an arm of one of the largest publishing houses in the world. The fact that Melania's legal pressure extended to a major international publisher tells you something important about the scope of this operation. Publishing houses receive threatening letters all the time. It is an unfortunate reality of the industry. But when those letters come from the legal team of a sitting First Lady, they carry a different kind of weight. Publishers have boards of directors, shareholders, and long-standing relationships with booksellers and distributors. The reputational and commercial risk of a high-profile legal battle with the White House is not something most publishers take lightly. Threatening HarperCollins UK was, if Wolf's characterization is accurate, a calculated attempt to reach into the international publishing industry and create enough uncertainty, enough risk, enough fear that the story simply doesn't get told. And yet here we are, the story is being told, because Michael Wolff sued her back. Let's return to what Wolf said about the press conference because he offered 2 more theories about why it happened, and both of them are worth examining carefully. His second theory is what he called, in PR terms, getting out in front of something. This is a well-known crisis communication strategy. When you know that damaging information is about to become public, you make a statement first. You control the timing, you control the framing, and you try to ensure that when the bombshell lands, it lands in a context that you have already shaped. Wolf suggested that the press conference may have been exactly this, a preemptive move ahead of a new accusation or a major revelation that is about to surface. If that is the case, the press conference was not a defense at all. It was an early warning system. It was Melania's team signaling, perhaps inadvertently, that something bigger is coming. What that something might be, Wolf did not specify, but the implication alone is significant.
Not sure if you saw the news, but Fox News is claiming President Trump is declining in the polls. President Trump responded and says Fox News polls can't be trusted. Now, Newsmax is conducting its own poll on President Trump's job performance. It takes just a minute to vote, so let us know what you think. If President Trump is doing a good job, we at Newsmax want to know your opinion. So make sure you vote.
And White House workers. Her pimp. The guy who really brought her to the U.S. And he had Trump have ICE deport his baby mama, his wife, I guess. It done got ugly, baby. Girl, was you freaking with that man? Yeah, cause yeah, come on, we gonna get there. Yes, that's what's coming. Yep.
If a man who has been deep in this story for months, who has access to materials and sources that the general public does not, looks at a First Lady's press conference, and his first instinct is to ask what she's trying to get ahead of, that is a signal that should not be ignored. And then there is Wolf's third theory, which is perhaps the most personally devastating of all, and which cuts to the very heart of the Trump marriage itself. Wolf suggested with characteristic bluntness that Melania simply hates her husband. Not dislikes, not resents, hates, and his reasoning is not without logic. Donald Trump is the reason Melania is in this mess. Donald Trump was the one with the documented social relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump's world, Donald Trump's friendships, Donald Trump's orbit, that is what drew Melania into proximity with Epstein in the first place. And now, as Wolf knows, Trump is doing things that threaten the Melania brand, the carefully constructed public image she has spent decades building and protecting with, as we've established, near industrial levels of legal aggression. Wolf's reading of the press conference is therefore this, that what Melania was actually doing, beneath all the legal posturing and PR strategy, was sending a message. Not to the public, not to the judge, but to Congress, and specifically, perhaps, to a future Democratic Congress that Wolf seems to believe may be on the horizon. The message, as Wolf interpreted it, was essentially, investigate him. Investigate Donald Trump, the man who got me into this, the man who is now making my situation worse. In Wolf's reading, the press conference was not a defense of Melania. It was an attack on her husband, delivered in the language of legal victimhood and public dignity. If Wolf is right about that, even partially right, then what we witnessed at that press conference was something genuinely unprecedented in modern American political history. A sitting First Lady using the platform of the White House to quietly signal to political opponents that they should pursue legal and congressional action against her own husband. That is not just unusual. That is extraordinary.
So that means he would
it is
deport
important
her.
To be clear about something. Wolf himself is not a neutral observer here.
If he can have his partner, can have ICE deport his baby mama, then that means that Trump can have her deported. Right? Right? Paul. Yeah, but I think it's Paulo. Paul, like a Paulo. Yeah, I got him. I got him. We gonna talk about it. Yeah. Oh, y'all know I got it. Them right here. Now, so was she in a poly relationship? Was she fooling with his wife? I mean, was they doing a little threesome ship? Cause he is the one who brought her from where chick or wherever she from. Yeah. And took her to Epstein. Keep it moving. Okay, let's go. This one right here, what's her name?
If Wolf is right
Amanda?
about that, even partially right, then what we witnessed at that press conference was something genuinely unprecedented in modern American political history. A sitting first lady using the platform of the White House
Yes,
to quietly signal
Slovenia.
to political opponents that they
There
should
we go.
pursue legal and congressional action against her own husband. That is not just unusual. That is extraordinary. Now, it is important to be clear about something. Wolf himself is not a neutral observer here. He is the plaintiff in this lawsuit. He has a direct financial and reputational stake in how this case is perceived. When he says the motion to dismiss has no chance, that is advocacy, not legal analysis. When he says her statement contradicts the evidence, he is making a claim that will ultimately be tested in court, not on YouTube or in television interviews. Every one of his interpretations of her motives, the judge influence theory, the getting out in front theory, the hates her husband
It's
theory,
finna get ugly.
is exactly that, an interpretation
Can I cut it
offered by
on
a
there?
man who benefits from a particular public narrative around this case. But here is the thing. Even accounting for all of that, even discounting for his obvious interest in painting Melania in the worst possible light, the core facts he raises are not easily dismissed. The pattern of threatening letters is documented.
I know she knows somebody got pictures.
College student
You know, I know she knows she in blackmail.
The Daily
I
Mail
know she
lawsuit
knows
happened.
somebody finna
The
blackmail
connection to
her.
Epstein via photographs and social circles is a matter of public record, and the question of whether a first lady should be making public statements about active federal litigation in which she is a defendant is not a partisan question. It is a legal and ethical question that stands regardless of who is asking it. What makes this story so compelling and so significant is not just the personalities involved. It is what it reveals about how power operates, about how the wealthy and the connected have, for generations, used the machinery of the legal system, not to seek justice, but to produce silence, threatening letters to journalists, to publishers, to political commentators, to media organizations. These are not the actions of someone confident in their innocence. They are the actions of someone determined to control information, regardless of its truth or public importance. Michael Wolff decided not to be silenced. Whether you agree with his politics, his methods, or his conclusions, that decision to respond to a legal threat with a lawsuit of his own, to refuse to back down, to continue speaking publicly even as the case proceeds, has placed a set of very uncomfortable questions directly in front of a federal judge. Questions that Melania Trump's team is apparently hoping will go away with a motion to dismiss. Questions that, according to Wolff, are not going anywhere. The judge has not ruled yet. We do not know what that ruling will say. We do not know what evidence Wolff has, or how strong his case ultimately is. We do not know whether Melania's press conference was strategic genius or catastrophic miscalculation. We do not know what bombshell, if any, Wolff believes is coming next. But we do know this. The journalist threatened by the First Lady sued her back. The case is in federal court. And the First Lady held a press conference about an active lawsuit that her opponent immediately characterized as an attempt to influence the judge. In the United States of America, in the year 2025, that is where we are. Stay tuned, because this is far from over. If you found this...
Show you. Okay, so let me go here. And hear what they saying on here. Then I'll get... Oh, I know I didn't drop that. I know I didn't. Oh my God. Look at him. Yeah, he tried to get in front of his situation too. Baby, they say Gates said he did nothing wrong. You got your girl VD. What you mean? Happy weekend. Right. You gave your wife VD. Bill Gates said he did nothing wrong. Now forced to testify on 8 trafficking and torture of minors in the Epstein with Epstein on the private island. Torture. You freaky old dirty dog, you. Freaky old dirty dog. There they go. Him. He got a made up position. And yeah, let's hear this, y'all. Get the likes up. I got 294 people in here and only 52 likes. What we doing? I don't know if y'all know. I don't know what you come to do. I don't know what you come to do. I will drop this live. Oh yeah. I will cut it off. Oh yeah. Auntie P, that's a church song. Y'all hit the like button. Hit those 3 dots at the top right corner, please. I would greatly appreciate it. This monster here, he done pulled y'all in all. Oh, so y'all not gonna hit the like button? Is that what we doing? Okay. Ooh wee. The devil worshiping people, they done pulled all type of stuff to get people pulled in. That's why I say all money ain't good money, boo. And it says it is easier for a rich man to enter. No. It is harder for What's the saying? It is hard for a rich man to squeeze through the eye of a needle. Whatever. You know what I mean. I can't remember it right now. It is, what is it? I can't remember it. I don't know if it is easier for a rich man to crawl through an eye of a needle or something like that. Easier for a camel, yeah, to squeeze through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Y'all done let these devils pull y'all into all of this stuff for a little bit of money. Well, a lot of money, like you said. I've got big houses, nice cars, I had servants. You got to lay in the bed where you used to with a man with a diaper on. Girl, bye. And you used to fool with him before you fool with, cause Paulo is the one who brought you over to the U.S. Yeah. And introduced you to him. Yeah. And he had you. So, yeah. But let's listen. Hit the like button. Let's go. Melania Epstein Road. Oh, Epstein Road. What's Epstein Road? Ooh, and what do they got to do with it?
A new name is suddenly at the center of a growing controversy. After Melania Trump publicly denied any links to Jeffrey Epstein on Thursday, attention has now shifted to a Brazilian national, Amanda Ungaro. Online speculation has surged after an account claiming to be Ungaro issued a direct and very public warning, a warning aimed straight at First Lady Melania Trump. The account claimed a long-standing association, saying it had been around her for nearly 2 decades. And then came the threat. Quote, I was around you for 20 years. I stayed close to your family, not because of you, but because of them. So shut your mouth, because I will expose everything I know. Now, this account does carry a verification badge and is reportedly...
She got jiggy with it, but what? Wow, let's go. Hi, Roberta.
Lady Melania Trump. The account claimed a long-standing association, saying it had been around her for nearly 2 decades. And then came the threat. Quote, I was around you for 20 years. I stayed close to your family, not because of you, but because of them. So shut your mouth, because I will expose everything I know. Now, this account does carry a verification badge and is reportedly based in Latin America. But here's the catch. Its authenticity and these claims have not been independently verified. Still, the timing has raised eyebrows, because the post went viral shortly after Melania's firm public denial of any meaningful connection to Epstein. So the big question now is, who exactly is Amanda Ungaro? Amanda Ungaro is not a random name. She has spent years moving within elite international and political circles. According to the New York Times report, she once served in a diplomatic role as Grenada's ambassador to the United Nations, focusing on environmental and economic issues. Her connection to the Trump world comes through Paolo Zampoli, the man known for introducing Donald Trump to Melania back in 1998. Ungaro and Zampoli were in a long-term relationship, nearly 2 decades, and even have a child together. Through him, she became part of the same social circles, attending high-profile events, including Trump's 2017 inauguration. But her story also intersects with the Epstein case. In an interview with Brazil's O Globo newspaper, Ungaro recalled being on Epstein's private jet at just 17 years old, alongside her agent, Jean-Luc Brunel. She described feeling immediate discomfort, surrounded by very young girls, sensing something was wrong. However, she has not directly accused Epstein of assault. More recently, Ungaro's name surfaced again after her arrest in Miami, linked to alleged fraud involving a medical spa business. She pleaded not guilty, but immigration authorities later detained her, citing an expired visa. Officials have since denied any political angle, stating her removal was purely based on immigration violations. So now, her resurfacing in this controversy, combined with that viral warning, is adding yet another layer to an already complex narrative surrounding Epstein and those once connected to him. And as speculation grows, the question remains, how deep do these connections really go? And will any proof ever follow the claims?
Now, she had a position, and her husband did too, but her husband go way back with Trump. They go a long way back. Hold on. Bear with me. Hit the like button, y'all. You and me, girl, go a long way back.
In an interview with Brazil's O Globo newspaper, Ungaro recalled being on Epstein's private jet at just 17 years old, alongside her agent, Jean-Luc Brunel. She described feeling immediate discomfort,
So he was
surrounded by very
let me
young
back
girls
this up. I stepped
in connection to
out.
Epstein. So the big question now is, who exactly is Amanda Ungaro?
Krista, I hope you
Amanda
having a good
Ungaro is
evening.
not a random name. She has spent years moving within elite international and political circles. According to the New York Times report, she once
Was
served
that
in a
that
diplomatic
Abercrombie
role
and
as
Fitch
Grenada's
guy
ambassador to the
before he
United
had all that
Nations,
work done?
focusing on environmental
Was that him,
and
that tall
economic
guy?
issues. Her connection to the Trump world comes through
That's a
Paolo
PD upper
Zampoli,
too?
the man known for introducing Donald Trump to Melania
Was
back in
that him?
1998. Port. She once served in a diplomatic role as Grenada's ambassador to the United Nations, focusing on environmental and economic issues. Her connection to the Trump world comes through Paolo Zampoli, the man known for introducing Donald Trump to Melania back in 1998. Ungaro and Zampoli were in a long-term relationship, nearly 2 decades, and even have a child together. Through him, she became part of the same social circles, attending high-profile events, including Trump's 2017 inauguration. But her story also intersects with the Epstein case. In an interview with Brazil's O Globo newspaper, Ungaro recalled being on Epstein's private jet at just 17 years old, alongside her agent, Jean-Luc Brunel. She described feeling immediate discomfort, surrounded by very young girls, sensing something was wrong. However, she has not directly accused Epstein of assault. More recently, Ungaro's name surfaced again after her arrest in Miami, linked to alleged fraud involving a medical spa business. She pleaded not guilty, but immigration authorities later detained her, citing an expired visa. Officials have since denied any political angle, stating her removal was purely based on immigration violations. So now, her resurfacing in this controversy, combined with that viral warning,
And you
is
didn't,
adding yet
Trump didn't
another
stop
layer
it?
to an already complex narrative surrounding Epstein and those once connected
They
to
didn't
him.
stop it?
And as speculation grows, the
Oh,
question
wow.
remains, how deep do these connections really go? And will any proof ever follow the claims?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would feel some type of way if y'all ain't helping me and we don't. Oh, she was a little girl. Oh, yeah, she was a little girl. So where? So her son is with him. Yeah, it's gonna get ugly. You don't have my back. I can't hold your secrets. Hey, Sal. Hey, Sal. You can't help me. I can't help y'all. Wow. Oh, well. She says, shut up, Melania. Oh, wow. Okay, let's go. Okay, I done listen to you. Oversight. Hold on.
Does your internet bill keep getting higher? That's because typical internet deals are full of surprises. I'm not a weakness.
I don't want to hear that. Hold on, where am I at? Let me hear this. Y'all, my lights ain't going up. Oh, I'm so glad they back. Let's go.
I am anonymous. We are a collective. We are many. We do not forgive. We do not forget. And today we're exposing a story that just detonated in plain sight. A story so chaotic, so absurd, and so revealing that it feels less like politics and more like a scripted drama that somehow forgot to follow its own plot. Here's the shock that should grab you immediately. Melania Trump stepped forward to defend herself after the Epstein bombshell, and instead of shutting anything down, she may have just reignited one of the most dangerous scandals tied to power, privilege, and silence. Let's break this down because it gets wild fast. Melania Trump suddenly positions herself as an advocate for survivors connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
They are not going,
She
baby.
says survivors should be allowed to come forward and testify. Sounds reasonable, right? Except the survivors themselves weren't buying it. Not even a little. They fired back with precision, pointing out that they've already shown extraordinary courage, filing reports, giving testimony, risking everything to speak out, asking more from them now. That's not justice. That's deflection. That's shifting responsibility away from the powerful people who have spent years avoiding accountability. And let's not pretend we don't know who sits at the center of that power structure. Donald Trump. A man who has repeatedly downplayed or dismissed the Epstein scandal, even calling it a hoax at times. So when Melania suddenly starts talking about justice, transparency, and amplifying victims' voices, the contradiction hits hard. And honestly, it's almost surreal, because it's not every day you see someone with the last name Trump encouraging women to speak more. So how did we get here? Everything felt like a typical chaotic political day noise, distractions, the usual expectation that Trump might say something outrageous, when suddenly Melania appears and calmly declares that the lies linking her to Epstein need
He
to
must have
end
threatened her.
today.
Afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
And the internet collectively pauses, because what lies, what exactly is she responding to? It felt like someone waking up mid-movie and delivering a monologue
I
from a
should
completely
say
different
unicorn
script.
land,
People were genuinely
not an ally.
confused. Did new allegations surface overnight? Or did she just
All
realize
these
that, yes, there are
were
actual photos
sick.
of her in the
Yep.
same social circles as Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Because that's the thing. This isn't some fringe conspiracy. There are real images, real connections, real overlap in elite circles, and yet the tone of her speech is almost mild. Talking about ethics, defamation, respect.
The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation.
But if you've watched the Trump world
Girl, you ain't got no
long enough,
reputation.
you know
No,
that's
not a
not
good
the
one.
usual playbook. Where are the threats? The over-the-top warnings,
Did y'all
the
see them
dramatic
pictures? Have you
escalation.
seen your
That's the
pictures?
Trump brand, go big or go nuclear. Instead, Melania delivers something that feels oddly restrained, almost like she's trying to distance herself not just from the allegations, but from the Trump style itself. Then she clarifies she was never Epstein's victim, never had a relationship with him or Maxwell, and she met Donald Trump by chance in New York back in 1998. And yes, right in the middle of this supposedly serious address, she manages to plug her own book as the source of that story.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book.
Where did you give it
Melania.
up to him
You
at?
can't ignore how bizarre that is. Imagine
You
talking
met at
about
the
one of the
Kit
most
Kat
disturbing
Club.
scandals in modern history and casually slipping in a promotional
But
moment.
where did you give
It's
him
like
that
the tone
cookie at?
jester snaps
On
in half.
Epstein plane?
Serious. Then suddenly self-marketing. And then comes the claim about fake images circulating online. She warns people not to believe everything they see.
Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now.
And why you just not saying something about
Be
it?
cautious about what you believe.
Why you didn't tell us to be cautious
These
about it for
images
years?
and stories are completely false.
And sure, misinformation exists. But here's where it gets shaky. People aren't just talking about fake images. They're
Melania,
pointing to
first
real
time I
photos,
see something fake about
documented
me, I'm saying cut
appearances, shared
goodbye.
events. So when she emphasizes fake, it almost feels like misdirection. Then we get to the email. The one piece of evidence so she brings up to show distance from Maxwell. A casual, friendly message. Compliments,
That you
small
in with
talk,
love.
mentions of travel.
Be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice,
She said she
Maxwell.
just ate your cuckoo.
My email reply
Y'all
to
was having
Maxwell
threesomes and shit.
cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence.
Nothing overtly incriminating, but definitely not cold or distant either. It reads like communication between people who are at least socially familiar. And here's the twist.
You wanted
that
to
makes
hook up
this
with him
whole
again.
thing spiral. No one had actually accused Melania of being directly involved in Epstein's crimes. Let that sink in. She steps
We all
out, delivers
know
a
she
national
throwing
level
them
defense
cheeks.
against something that wasn't even the main accusation.
Throwing that
And
ass
in
in the
doing
air.
so, she introduces a new question into the conversation. Should we be looking closer? That's how narratives shift.
The variety is unlike anything I've ever seen, with over 100 menu options to choose from every week, so I
I
can always
saw
find
on
the
the
exact
poll,
one
and I
that
don't know if that poll is real, but
And then she escalates again, calling on Congress to act, insisting Epstein wasn't alone, pointing to powerful men who stepped down after the scandal gained attention.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth.
On paper, it sounds like a call for accountability, but in reality, it exposes a massive contradiction. Because the system she's
At the
calling on
Kit
has already
Kat
failed.
Club.
Millions
Give
of
me a
Epstein-related files still
break me
unreleased.
off a piece of
Victims
that
named
Kit
publicly,
Kat,
while
boy.
alleged co-conspirators remain hidden. Key figures like Pam Bondi refusing to testify. And this all ties back to the same political ecosystem. So again, the question echoes louder. Why now? Even the media didn't see this coming. Reporters across networks, including Fox News, were blindsided. No build-up, no preview, no leaks, just a sudden appearance, and a speech that left everyone scrambling. And then comes one of the most revealing details. Reports suggest that Donald Trump himself didn't even know Melania was going to address this topic. Think about that for a second.
So what you
say? A man known for controlling narratives. No preview, no leaks, just a sudden appearance, and a speech that left everyone scrambling. And then comes one of the most revealing details. Reports suggest that Donald Trump himself didn't even know Melania was going to address this topic. Think about that for a second.
He didn't know that Boo Boo Kitty was going to do this press conference. Now, I'm gonna pause for a minute. Y'all hit the like button. And I'm finna play some. Now, I didn't see a video. I don't follow Trump. I wish I would follow a clown. I just can't. Now, I come across what he posts on certain people. Like being a Midas. But I don't listen to him like that. Vice President Vance's negotiations. Negotiation ended early. Oh, it's Sunday over there between Iran without a peace deal after the Iranians refused to accept America's term. Yeah, they shut that shit down. But let me get back over here where I'm gonna play something for you.
That video Trump posted of the woman getting killed with a hammer.
Did y'all hear about
Video
that?
Trump posted of the woman getting killed with a hammer. That gruesome video was absolutely a direct threat to Melania, because moments before he posted that video,
did y'all hear
video
this?
Trump posted of the woman getting killed with a hammer, that gruesome video, was absolutely a direct threat to Melania, because moments before he posted that video, Melania came on like live television saying that the victims deserve justice and said what she said about the Epstein files. And then a little later, Trump posted that video. Trump absolutely threatened Melania, like, I'll you with a hammer, is probably something he would say. That video
And
Trump
they
posted
have you buried
of the woman getting killed with a hammer, that gruesome video,
next to
was
Obama.
absolutely a direct threat to Melania, because moments before he posted that video, Melania came on like live television saying that the victims deserve justice and said what she said about the Epstein files. And then a little later, Trump posted that video. Trump absolutely threatened Melania, like, I'll you with a hammer.
I bust your head
Is
to the
probably
white
something
meat.
he would say. And then he posted that video as a reminder to show her what it looks like when somebody gets killed with a hammer. That's what type of person he is. Melania hates him. You can tell she hates him with every fiber of her being.
Dude.
She loves her son, and that's the only thing good out of that
And,
marriage.
and he hate him. I mean, he ain't fond of him
despises
either.
Trump. So when she went on live television, she's separating her ass from him because she knows what's in the files.
I'm going
She
to
knows what's in
investigate
there.
that time.
And that's why he posted that video, threatening her.
See if it was
If you
anywhere
don't see
near
that,
before
you're
or
fucking
after.
blind.
Oh, heck. What I just did.
That video Trump posted of the woman getting killed with a hammer, that gruesome video,
Why did he even show
was
it?
absolutely a direct threat to Melania, because moments before he posted that video, Melania came on like live television saying that the victims deserve justice and said what she said about the Epstein files. And then a little later, Trump posted that video. Trump absolutely
I ain't know nothing about it.
threatened Melania, like, I'll you with a hammer, is probably something
And
he would say.
with
And then he
baby
posted that
Huey.
video as a reminder
And
to show
big
her what it looks like when somebody gets killed with a
ass
hammer.
orange duck.
That's what type of person he is. Melania hates him. You can tell she hates him with every fiber of her being. She loves her son, and that's the only thing good out of that marriage she has. She despises Trump. So when she went on live television, she's separating her ass from him because she knows what's in the files. She knows what's in there. And that's why he posted that video, threatening her.
Wow. Okay, so let's get back over here. Oh, man, where was I? I messed it up. Oh, man.
If you don't love this thing, send it
Hold
right back
on.
to me. I'll eat it for real. Just put it in water. Watch closely.
So she brings up, to show distance from Maxwell, a casual, friendly message.
Just as anything more than casual correspondence.
Nothing overtly incriminating, but definitely not cold or distant either. It reads like communication between people who are at least socially familiar. And here's the twist that makes this whole thing spiral. No one had actually accused Melania of being directly involved in Epstein's crimes. Let that sink in. She steps out, delivers a national-level defense against something that wasn't even the main accusation. And in doing so, she introduces a new question into the conversation. Should we be looking closer? That's how narratives shift. And then she escalates again, calling on Congress to act, insisting Epstein wasn't alone, pointing to powerful men who stepped down after the scandal gained attention.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course,
I'm reading right here. Prince Andrew revealed that Melania was a tossed salad between him and Jeffrey before Trump landed her. Oh wow! I don't know if it's true. But Prince Andrew, girl, you got Prince Andrew that's gonna say he hit that. That you before Trump. Oh wow! So you a pass around. Paulo had you. Epstein had you. Andrew had you. You gave him, I guess, hell, when you was on that plane, you was wide, deep, fuck open. Just, ooh. And Trump said, your head game my head game bring all the boys to the yard. I mean, he married you because your head good. I mean, come on, y'all. Come on. Ooh, let's go. Let's go.
this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth.
On paper, it sounds like a call for accountability, but in reality, it exposes a massive contradiction.
Thank
Because
you,
the system
Mrs. Tom.
she's calling
Thank you,
on
me.
has already failed. Millions of Epstein-related files still unreleased. Victims named publicly, while alleged co-conspirators remain hidden. Key figures like Pam Bondi refusing to testify. And this all ties back to the same political ecosystem. So again, the question echoes louder. Why now? Even the media didn't see this coming. Reporters across networks, including Fox News, were blindsided. No build-up, no preview, no leaks, just a sudden appearance, and a speech that left everyone scrambling. And then comes one of the most revealing details. Reports suggest that Donald Trump himself didn't even know Melania was going to address this topic. Think about that for a second. A man known for controlling narratives, dominating headlines, and micromanaging messaging, completely unaware of a major statement from his own wife on one of the most sensitive issues connected to...
Well, that when she had to testify, she had to give him up. She gave up Ivanka. Y'all remember that? Because she gave the location of where the safe was. Move that picture of his mama. Yeah, behind that picture of her is where the safe is at. She gave up the safe and she gave up Melania. She gave up Ivanka when she had to testify with Jack Smith. Y'all remember that? And then Ivanka went on the stand and gave up her daddy. My daddy made me do it. I told him these numbers was fudge and, I wasn't supposed to do that. He said, you got to do this, you got to do that. And yeah, so she gave up Ivanka and the mama behind the safe. Ivanka gave up her daddy, who taught her how to fudge them numbers to make the bank approve the loans. Yeah. They don't want us to know though, so don't tell nobody. They don't want us to know. Okay? And so what it made it look like, that the news that Jack Smith was fake. It wasn't fake. He just had it tied up in court. And it was going to be tied up in court. Remember that Cannon lady? She was the one who threw it. But he got a new case now. He bringing it right on back around. We're back. He victim of Foley, Trump. Their ass is in trouble. It's just the way they going about it. It's just taking a long time because Trump and them tie up shit in court, just like she tied up Michael Wolff, saying I don't live in New York where it was filed. I live in Florida. trying to get the case moved to Florida. You should have never tried that man. You should have never tried to intimidate a grown man who know your husband and know Epstein as well. And as well as Bannon. Yeah, y'all tactics failed on this one. And he jumped right on it. Because he, in his mind, he said this is going to be a way that he going to get them Epstein files. Oh, well.
His orbit. That's not strategy. That's dysfunction. And it feeds into a bigger picture.
You right,
because for years,
Aaron.
the Trump administration has looked chaotic from the outside, disorganized, reactive, unpredictable. But moments like this suggest that chaos isn't just an appearance. It might be the system itself. And when systems break down, truth starts slipping through the cracks. Meanwhile, the public reaction has been explosive. Social media is flooded. Memes clips, side-by-side comparisons. People laughing at the absurdity, others furious at the hypocrisy. You've got videos of Trump calling the Epstein scandal a hoax, right next to clips of survivors saying they tried to testify and were ignored.
So I wonder, since Epstein is not unalive, I wonder if that Brunel guy, his over in France, I wonder is he alive? Since they faking and shaking. That John Lou Brunel. Because Ungaro was brought to the U.S. on an Epstein plane by his partner in pedophilia, John Luke Burnell, when she was 17 years old. And Paulo had a modeling agency. So I wonder if he's still alive since they faking folk death. But let's go.
Whole Epstein thing is a Democrat hoax.
Every single one of them. That contrast, it hits hard. Because behind all the noise, there's something real here. Survivors who have spent years trying to be heard. Who faced the resistance, silence, and institutional barriers. And now suddenly, they're being asked to do more by someone connected to the very system that failed them. It's no wonder their response was sharp. And yet, ironically, Melania may have done something powerful without meaning to. By bringing attention back to Epstein, she reignited public scrutiny. She forced people to look again, to question again, to dig again. And that creates a serious problem for Donald Trump. Because if this momentum builds, if investigations reopen, if testimonies gain traction, if more information surfaces, it becomes harder to dismiss everything as fake, as lies, as hoaxes. And we've seen how he reacts when pressure builds. Attacking reporters, insulting critics, deflecting blame. It's loud, it's aggressive, it's effective, until it stops working. And right now, it feels like it might be slipping. There's also something deeper here, power. Who holds it, who abuses it, and who gets shielded by it. The Epstein scandal has never just been about one man. It's about networks, influence, silence enforced at the highest levels. And every time this story resurfaces, it threatens those networks. Which is why this moment matters. Because whether intentional or not, Melania disrupted the narrative. She cracked something open. So now the question becomes unavoidable. Was this a calculated move to distance herself and reshape her image? Or was it a mistake? A misstep that dragged everything back into the spotlight at the worst possible time. Either way, the effect is the same. People are watching again. Questions are being asked again. And somewhere out there, more pieces are waiting to surface. So what do you think this really is? A coincidence? A distraction? Or the beginning of something bigger? Unraveling. Drop your thoughts. Share this story. Keep the pressure on. Because silence protects power.
Eric Bonet said, I know I've joked about it before, but I know I'm smarter, that I'm more qualified to be the president of the United States. And I talk to myself in the restaurant. He is funny. He is really funny. Okay, let's on to the next. I need to find it. I need to find some I stashed, I hid last week. Where this lady says she butched out Trump. I need to find it. And she says she butched him out. How you butch out a man? Huh? I gotta find it. Let's go. Hold on. How you get butched out by a man? Is there even such a thing? Have y'all ever heard of such a thing? A female saying that she butched out Trump. How can you do that? What does that mean? Supreme Court strip? I don't know. You lying. Most people don't realize. Okay, let's go.
If you can't catch your breath and treatments aren't working, you have mucus plugs, dense blockages suffocating your airways like cork.
You know, let me tell you something most folks don't stop to think about. A sea mine doesn't care who you voted for. It doesn't care whether you're a tanker carrying oil to Tokyo or a Navy vessel flying the American flag. It just sits there, quiet, waiting. And when it finds you, the conversation's over. Now look, I've been watching what's unfolding in the Strait of Hormuz with the same knot in my stomach that I had when I sat behind that desk in the Oval Office and dealt with that very same waterway. Every president since Jimmy Carter has understood one fundamental truth. You keep the Strait of Hormuz open, or the global economy pays a price that no nation can afford. 20% of the world's oil and gas
and they did not
through a channel
they left without a deal.
Miles wide. That's not a talking point, that's a fact of life. And right now, as we speak, today, April the 11th, our Navy is out there trying to clear mines that didn't need to be there. Vice President Vance is sitting in Islamabad trying to negotiate a peace we didn't need to lose. And behind all of it, behind the ceasefire announcements and the social media posts about clearing out the strait, there's a reality that most people haven't fully absorbed yet. We spent 38 days and over $33 billion fighting a war that left the strait more closed than it was before we started. And we'll come back to that number because it matters. But here's what really keeps me up at night. This isn't just about Iran.
If you don't see that, you're fucking blind.
When we get to what China is doing behind the scenes,
are they getting prepared
right now during this ceasefire? You'll understand why this moment is about something much bigger than mines in a shipping lane.
Here you go.
This is about whether America still has the strategic credibility to lead. We'll come back to that number because it matters. But here's what really keeps me up at night. This isn't just about Iran anymore. When we get to what China is doing behind the scenes, right now during this ceasefire, you'll understand why this moment is about something much bigger than mines in a shipping lane. This is about whether America still has the strategic credibility to lead. And that, my friends, is a question every one of us ought to be paying attention to. Now, to understand where we are today, you've got to understand how we got here. And I don't mean the headlines, I mean the sequence. Because in governance, sequence is everything. One decision leads to the next. And before you know it, you're standing somewhere nobody planned to be. Late February of this year, the administration launched what they called Operation Epic Fury, airstrikes against Iranian military infrastructure. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Iran is a good actor. They're not. I dealt with Iran. We all dealt with Iran. The dual containment policy my administration pursued was built on a very simple idea. You apply pressure, you maintain deterrence, and you keep the door open for diplomacy. It's not glamorous, it doesn't make for good television, but it kept that strait open, and it kept American servicemen and women out of harm's way. What happened on February 28th changed everything. Iran responded to the strikes by mining the Strait of Hormuz. Now, anyone with a passing knowledge of that region's history should have seen that coming. In 1988, the USS Samuel B. Roberts hit an Iranian mine in those very same waters. We responded with Operation Praying Mantis, the largest U.S. naval engagement since World War II. We knew then what mines in the strait meant. The playbook was right there on the shelf. By March the 10th, the Navy had destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels. But the mines were already in the water. And here's the thing about mines. Destroying the ship that laid them doesn't remove the ones already sitting on the ocean floor. By early April, commercial traffic through the strait had dropped roughly 90%. 90%. The ceasefire came on April 7th. And now J.D. Vance is in Islamabad with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner trying to stitch together some kind of framework. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way in the White House. You don't start something unless you know how it ends. That's not cowardice. That's responsibility. That's what governing means. And right now, we're watching an administration try to find the exit in a building they never bothered to map. But here's where things start to get really complicated, because the mines were just the beginning of the problem. Let me bring this down to earth for a moment, because the operational picture here is something most Americans haven't heard anyone explain honestly. The United States Navy is right now attempting to clear mines from one of the most strategically vital waterways on the planet. And they're doing it with systems that have never been tested at this scale in a live combat environment. We retired our last dedicated minesweeping ships, the Avenger class, years ago. What we have now are littoral combat ships fitted with unmanned mine countermeasure packages. On paper, that sounds modern. In practice, experts at the U.S. Naval Institute have been raising alarms for years that these systems are insufficient for a large-scale mine-clearing operation. And now we're finding out whether they were right. This isn't a show of strength, folks. This is a scramble. We're spending billions of dollars to reopen a waterway that was open before we started this conflict. Just think about that for a moment. We may need Japan and other allies to help with the clearing effort. The same allies, by the way, whose trust in American judgment has taken a serious hit over the past 6 weeks. Now let me give you the numbers, because numbers tell you what rhetoric won't.
The April 15th tax deadline is coming fast. Yeah. You can skip the line, and a TurboTax expert can do your taxes for you. And
$33 billion spent in 39 days. $2.35 billion in equipment losses. F-15s, drones, an AWACS aircraft, helicopters, our THAAD and Patriot missile defense interceptors, the very systems that protect American forces and allies from ballistic missiles are significantly depleted. 13 American service members killed. On the other side, more than 3,000 Iranian casualties, including over 1,700 civilians and 254 children. And here at home, gas prices surged 39%. Now, I've sat in budget meetings. I've signed defense appropriations. I know what $1 billion means. And when I hear $33 billion spent to create a problem and then spend more to fix it, well, that's not strategy. That's a lesson in what happens when you don't think past the first move. And the next move,
What you saying,
the
don't?
one that was made in the Situation Room, that's what we need to talk about now. Now look, I want to be careful here because I'm not in the business of personal attacks. Never have been. But I am in the business of honest analysis. And when you look at the decision making that launched this operation, you've got to ask some hard questions. Questions that have nothing to do with party and everything to do with governments. Operation Epic Fury was launched without congressional authorization. No formal declaration, no authorization for use of military force. Now, I understand the pressures the Commander-in-Chief
We
faces.
miss hearing
I've
logical.
been there.
Absolutely.
But the Constitution isn't a suggestion, it's a framework. And that framework exists precisely for moments like this, when the stakes are highest and the temptation to act unilaterally is greatest. Congress isn't an obstacle. Congress is a safeguard. And then there's the question of who was in the room. The New York Times, Jonathan Swan, Maggie Haberman, reported that the president's advisors failed to challenge his assumptions. John Bolton, the president's own former national security advisor, said publicly there was no strategy, just panic. Now, I'm old enough to remember what happens when nobody in the room can tell the president he's wrong. The country pays the price. In my administration, we had disagreements, heated ones. Madeleine Albright and Sandy Berger didn't always see eye to eye. But that's how you make good decisions. You test them. You stress test them. You make sure someone in the room is asking, what happens next? Secretary Hegseth talked about no quarter and capital V military victory. But let's measure that against results. No regime change. Khamenei's son Mojtaba, reportedly more hardline, has taken the reins. No nuclear disarmament. No destruction of Iran's proxy network. And the strait is still functionally closed.
Hey, Deborah. Hey, Joe.
Every single stated objective
Thank
remains
y'all.
unmet. I've seen this movie before. Leaders who plan the victory parade before the battle is won. That's not strength. That's the opposite of strength. And what it's done to our institutions, well, that's what worries me most. Let's talk about that. Here's the honest truth, and it's something I've spent a lot of years thinking about. The greatest asset the United States has in the world isn't our aircraft carriers or our missile systems. It's trust. Trust that when America gives its word, it means something. Trust that when we lead a coalition, we know where we're going. Trust that our democratic institutions make us predictable, reliable, and accountable. And right now, every one of those pillars is cracked. Our NATO allies refuse to join this operation. Think about that. The alliance that has been the backbone of Western security since 1949 looked at what we were doing and said no. And instead of reflecting on why, the administration threatened to punish them. The Center for American Progress described how much of the world now sees us volatile, unreliable, and malevolent. Those aren't words you want associated with American leadership. And now we come to China. And this is where I need you to really pay attention. CNN reported that U.S. intelligence shows China preparing to ship man-pad air defense systems to Iran during this ceasefire window. Let that sink in. While we're trying to negotiate peace, Beijing is quietly arming the other side. This is not just an Iran problem anymore. This is a great power competition problem. And we handed China this opportunity on a silver platter. They get to position themselves as the responsible global actor, the peacemaker, while building a counter-American security architecture right under our noses. Meanwhile, Iran is charging $2 million per vessel to transit the strait under the ceasefire terms, a toll regime on international commerce sanctioned by the very agreement we signed. Abu Dhabi's Sultan Al Jaber said it plainly. The Strait of Hormuz is not open. And here at home, this war was launched without the constitutional authority that our founders specifically required. Democracy depends on accountability, and right now nobody is being held accountable for any of this. That silence, that's the sound that should frighten us most. Now we've got to remember something. Every war has two fronts, the one overseas and the one at home. And the battle for the narrative here at home is just as fierce as anything happening in the Persian Gulf. The administration has called this a total and complete victory. And look, I've been in politics long enough to know that framing matters. But here's what's remarkable. Even Fox News, during their own coverage, put up a graphic listing the operation's objectives and showed that none of them had been fully met. When your own side's network can't make the scorecard work, you've got a credibility problem that no press conference can fix. The Economist, not exactly a left-wing publication, ran a headline calling Trump the war's biggest loser. The Financial Times and Bloomberg have echoed that analysis. These are serious, sober institutions telling the world that America overreached and under-delivered. That's not partisan spin. That's the international consensus. And who's paying the price at home? The Guardian reported that the soldiers we lost came disproportionately from heartland communities, the Midwest, small towns, places where a military career is one of the few paths to opportunity. Gas hit $4.14 a gallon. The International Energy Agency called this energy disruption more serious than 1973, 1979, and 2022 combined. Small business owners, truckers, farmers, families trying to make it to the end of the month, they're absorbing this cost right now. And in Islamabad today, it's J.D. Vance leading the most consequential negotiation of the decade. Now, I respect the office of the vice president, but this is a situation where Iran holds the upper hand because Trump needs a deal more than Tehran does. Iran controls the strait. They've got the enriched uranium. they've got the proxy networks intact. When you need a deal that badly, you don't get good terms. You get what the other side gives you. I've been in enough negotiating tables to know you can spin a news cycle, but you cannot spin a gas bill. People feel it, and eventually they vote on it. Let me tell you something about looking ahead. And I say this as someone who spent 8 years trying to see around corners.
Does your internet bill keep getting higher? That's because typical internet deals are full of surprises.
The hardest part of any is intact. When you need a deal that badly, you don't get good terms. You get what the other side gives you. I've been in enough negotiating tables to know you can spin a news cycle, but you cannot spin a gas bill. People feel it, and eventually they vote on it. Let me tell you something about looking ahead. And I say this as someone who spent 8 years trying to see around corners. The hardest part of any crisis isn't managing what's happening now. It's understanding what's coming next.
Hey, Belinda.
So let me lay out 3 scenarios because I think the American people deserve an honest assessment, not slogans. Scenario 1. The Islamabad talks produce a framework agreement. That's the best case. But even in the best case, any deal is going to favor Iranian terms because Iran holds the leverage. They control the strait. They still possess enriched uranium. Their proxy networks are intact. So what we'd get is a diminished outcome dressed up as peace. The administration takes a victory lap, the cameras move on, and we quietly live with a weaker strategic position than we had 40 days ago.
Wow.
Scenario 2, the talks collapse. The ceasefire ends. Hostilities resume. But now our munitions are depleted. THAAD interceptors, Patriot missiles, precision-guided weapons, all significantly drawn down. Our allies are further away than before. And China is actively resupplying Iran with air defense systems. The military calculus has gotten worse, not better. A second round of this conflict would be costlier and more dangerous than the first. Scenario 3, and this is the one I think is most likely, is a frozen conflict. Neither peace nor war. Iran maintains its toll regime over the strait. China continues building its security relationship with Tehran. The global economy absorbs a permanent risk premium on energy, and the world quietly adjusts to a new reality where America's ability to guarantee freedom of navigation, something we've done since 1945, is no longer a certainty. And here's what keeps the strategist in me awake. Every interceptor we spent on this war is one we don't have for the Pacific. Every signal of overextension emboldens Beijing's calculus on Taiwan. Mojtaba Khamenei is an unknown, possibly more dangerous than his father. And Iran's enriched uranium hasn't gone anywhere. The question isn't whether we can live with any of these outcomes. The question is whether any of them, any single one, makes America safer than we were 40 days ago. And the honest answer is no. You know, I spent my whole life believing in this country's ability to correct course. Not because we're perfect, Lord knows we're not, but because the system was designed to self-correct. After Vietnam, we reformed the War Powers Act. After Watergate, we strengthened oversight. After Iraq, we had a national reckoning about intelligence and accountability. We've come back from worse. But we came back because people paid attention. We came back because citizens, not politicians, citizens demanded better. And that's what this moment asks of us. Not despair, not rage, engagement. The mines in the Strait of Hormuz are real. 13 American families are grieving real losses tonight. The gas prices are real. The depleted missile stockpiles are real. And the question of whether our leaders made the right call, that's not a partisan question. That's a democratic one. Now look, I'm not asking you to agree with me. I've been around too long to expect that. But I am asking you to hold your leaders accountable, all of them, including me when I was there.
Right.
Because that's what democracy is. It's not a spectator sport. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in every day with every choice about what you pay attention to.
I'm going to back it up a little
what you
bit.
demand from the people who represent you. 2022 combined. Small business owners, truckers, farmers, families trying to make it to the end of the month. They're absorbing this cost right now. And in Islamabad today, it's J.D. Vance leading the most consequential negotiation of the decade. Now, I respect the office of the vice president, but this is a situation where Iran holds the upper hand because Trump needs a deal more than Tehran does. Iran controls the strait.
What's a pepper?
They've got the enriched uranium. They've got the proxy networks intact. When you need a deal that badly, you don't get good terms.
With critical
you get
thinking,
what the other side gives
because
you.
going in there with quick
I've
lies,
been in enough negotiating tables to know.
switch
You can spin
your
a news
rule of
cycle,
words, that ain't gonna make
but
it.
you cannot spin a gas bill. People feel it, and eventually they vote on it. Let me tell you
Hey,
something
Janet.
about looking ahead. And I say this as someone who spent 8 years trying to see around corners.
We do deserve to be told the
The
truth.
hardest part of any crisis isn't managing what's happening now. It's understanding what's coming next.
Wow.
So let me lay out 3 scenarios because I think the American people deserve an honest assessment, not slogans. Scenario 1, the Islamabad talks produce a framework agreement. That's the best case. But even in the best case, any deal is going to favor Iranian terms because Iran holds the leverage. They control the strait. They still possess enriched uranium. Their proxy networks are intact. So what we'd get is a diminished outcome.
And Bibi
dressed
Netanyahu
up
wanted
as peace.
plus Trump.
The administration takes a victory lap, the cameras move on, and we quietly live with a weaker strategic position than we had 40 days ago. Scenario 2, the talks collapse. The ceasefire ends. Hostilities resume. But now our munitions are depleted. THAAD interceptors, Patriot missiles, precision-guided weapons, all significantly drawn down. Our allies are further away than before. And China is actively resupplying Iran with air defense systems. The military calculus has gotten worse, not better. A second round of this conflict would be costlier and more dangerous than the first. Scenario 3, and this is the one I think is most likely, is a frozen conflict. Neither peace nor war. Iran maintains its toll regime over the strait. China continues building its security relationship with Tehran. The global economy absorbs a permanent risk premium on energy, and the world quietly adjusts to a new reality where America's ability to guarantee freedom of navigation, something we've done since 1945, is no longer a certainty. And here's what keeps the strategist in me awake. Every interceptor we spent on this war is one we don't have for the Pacific. Every signal of overextension emboldens Beijing's calculus on Taiwan.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure thing.
How much do you spend on groceries per week?
Like 150
Hey,
$200,
JR.
200, I think.
Hey, Strong Survive.
Mojtaba
She
Khamenei
said, I
is
hit
an
the like
unknown,
button as I enter. Thank
possibly more
you.
dangerous than his father. And Iran's enriched uranium hasn't gone anywhere. The question isn't whether we can live with any of these outcomes. The question is whether any of them, any single one, makes America safer than we were 40 days ago. And the honest answer is no. You know, I spent my whole life believing in this country's ability to correct course. Not because we're perfect, Lord knows we're not, but because the system was designed to self-correct. After Vietnam, we reformed the War Powers Act. After Watergate, we strengthened oversight. After Iraq, we had a national reckoning about intelligence and accountability. We've come back from worse. But we came back
She said she have a
because
fortress.
people paid attention. We came back because citizens, not politicians, citizens demanded better. And that's what this moment asks of us. Not despair, not rage, engagement. The mines in the Strait of Hormuz are real. 13 American families are grieving real losses tonight. The gas prices are real. The depleted missile stockpiles are real. And the question of whether our leaders made the right call, that's not a partisan question. That's a democratic one. Now look, I'm not asking you to agree with me. I've been around too long to expect that. But I am asking you to hold your leaders accountable. All of them, including me when I was there. Because that's what democracy is. It's not a spectator sport. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in. Every day, with every choice about what you pay attention to and what you demand from the people who represent you. The best foreign policy decisions I ever made had Republican fingerprints on them. The most dangerous moments I navigated had bipartisan support behind them. That's not nostalgia. That's how it's supposed to work. The Constitution puts Congress in the chain of decisions about war for a reason. Not to slow things down, to make sure we get them right. So here we are. Our Navy is clearing mines from waters they didn't need to be in. Our diplomats are negotiating from a position of need, not strength. Our adversaries are watching and learning. And somewhere in a small town in the Midwest, a family is trying to figure out how to afford to fill their gas tank and make sense of why their neighbor's child isn't coming home. This is still our country.
Yes, it is.
These are still our decisions. And the mines in that strait, the ones we can see and the ones we can't, they're a reminder that in a democracy, the consequences of leadership fall on all of us. So let's start acting like it. Let's clear the path forward together.
So this.
You know, there are moments in the life of a country that don't make a sound when they happen. No.
Now I need for y'all to hit the like button. This is a different one. You see he got his glasses on. He getting serious up in here. Ouch. 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 Can I get y'all to hit the like button for me? That's the word. We got to stop playing. We got to hold these people accountable. You know, don't give up. Don't keep. I don't want to say your knee on their neck, but stop playing like you don't know, you don't understand, or this, that, or the other. No. That's why I don't play. I don't play with them lies. I don't play with them control narratives. I don't play with none of that. I'm serious about it. I do not want to play any games. Y'all come on, let's hit the like button. Because it is 10 o'clock. I'm going to give myself another hour. I got to go to sleep tonight. I was up all night, so I'm not going to be here on here all night like I have been. I just can't now. I'm saying that now. Unless y'all make it worth my while. But right now, Where is it at? Y'all ready? Get the lights up.
You know, there are moments in the life of a country that don't make a sound when they happen. No sirens go off. It's just a phone call. Maybe one person asks for a favor. The other says, sure. But that phone call, the one between then President-elect Donald Trump and Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito on January the 7th, 2025, that one mattered. I spent 8 years in the Oval Office, and I learned something early on. In a democracy, it's not always the grand gestures that define you. It's the small ones. The call you make, the signal you send when nobody's really watching. Every interaction between a president and a justice sends a message about whether the rules still apply.
Vaginal suppositories.
Never out of 10. It's like putting chapstick on your forehead and hoping that it reaches your lips.
Here's what we know. On January 7th, Trump called Justice Alito on his personal cell. Alito confirmed it, said it was about recommending a former law clerk for a position. Maybe that's all it was, but the very next day, Trump's legal team filed an emergency application asking the Supreme Court to block his criminal sentencing in the New York hush money case set for January 10th. I've been around Washington long enough to know that timing is never just timing. When the president-elect calls a sitting justice hours before his lawyers ask that same justice to intervene in his criminal case, the appearance alone is devastating. And in the law, appearance matters almost as much as reality. Because public trust is built on what people can see. When I was president, I understood something fundamental. The credibility of the judiciary depends on distance. Not hostility, distance. The moment a president and a justice start talking on personal cell phones while a case is pending, that distance collapses. The court was designed as the last resort, the one place in our system where politics is supposed to stop at the door. When a case reaches the Supreme Court, the promise is that 9 justices will look at the law and nothing else. Not who appointed them, not which party controls the Senate, just the law. I appointed 2 justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Stephen Breyer. When I nominated Ginsburg in 1993, the Senate confirmed her 96-3. Breyer was confirmed 87-9. Those weren't partisan votes. There was a time when the confirmation process honored a norm of deference to qualified jurists. Here's something most people don't know. When Alito was confirmed to the Third Circuit in 1990, it was unanimous. He had the strong endorsement of his Democratic home state senators. Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself wrote him a warm personal note before his Supreme Court confirmation. That's how it used to work. Mutual respect across ideological lines. The erosion of that trust didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't the fault of one party. The Bork hearings started something. The treatment of Clarence Thomas deepened it. By the time we got to Merrick Garland and the fights over Kavanaugh and Barrett, the norms were shattered. But acknowledging that history doesn't excuse what's happening now. It makes it more dangerous because the institution has already been weakened. Let me walk you through the facts. On January 7, 2025, Trump called Alito on his personal cell phone. On January 8th, Trump's lawyers filed an emergency application asking the justices to block his sentencing in the case where he'd been convicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Suddenly, Alito wasn't just a justice who'd taken a friendly call. He was being asked to rule on an emergency petition from the very person he'd been chatting with the day before. Congressman Jamie Raskin immediately went public, calling it a startling ex parte private phone call and breach of judicial ethics. He demanded Alito recuse himself. In legal terms, ex parte means communication between a judge and one party without the other side present. It's one of the most basic prohibitions in our legal system. Alito fired back, releasing a letter flatly refusing to recuse from any case involving Trump. When the emergency petition came before the court, the justices denied Trump's request 5-4. Alito was among those 4 who would have blocked the sentencing. He voted to give Trump exactly what Trump wanted, hours after their personal phone call. Under federal statute, 28 U.S.C. Section 455, a judge must disqualify himself where his impartiality might reasonably be questioned, not where he's actually biased, where a reasonable person might question his impartiality. But here's the unique problem with the Supreme Court. There is no higher authority to compel recusal. Each justice decides for himself. It's an honor system. If the phone call were an isolated incident, you might give Alito the benefit of the doubt. But this was part of a pattern. The Atlantic published a devastating profile of Alito in April 2026, written by Peter Canelos. The Samuel Alito confirmed in 2006 was described as shy, bookish, soft-spoken, a man who told the Senate a judge can't have any agenda. The judge's only obligation, and it's a solemn obligation, is to the rule of law. His former colleague said he was no ideologue, but his own Princeton classmate, retired Judge Andrew Napolitano, a libertarian, told the Atlantic plainly, Sam is not an originalist. Sam is a conservative person who wants a conservative outcome. He went on to say that at the Supreme Court, Alito has the privilege of doing that because it's a court of last resort. What distinguishes Alito from his fellow conservative justices is not his conservatism. It's his unwillingness to acknowledge even the appearance of impropriety. Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Barrett, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, all conservative, all
I did not
appointed by
have.
Republican presidents. But they have, at least in some cases, ruled against Trump's assertions of executive.
Yashua, what's your point? What's your point? I'm giving you time to tell me what's your point, cause it seemed like you trolling and you come over here to play, and I don't play over here. So, do you have a point, or do you need to remove yourself? You can't hear me? You think I'm playing with you? Okay, y'all say bye to old fool. Say bye to foolishness. Bye foolishness. Go over there and play with your daddy. Change his diaper. Let's go. Y'all please hit the like
Because it's a
button.
court of last resort. What distinguishes Alito from his fellow conservative
Hey, Dorothy.
justices is not his conservatism. It's his unwillingness to acknowledge even the appearance of impropriety. Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Barrett, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, all conservative, all appointed by Republican presidents. But they have, at least in some cases, ruled against Trump's assertions of executive power. On the shadow docket, the other conservatives have occasionally joined with liberals to set boundaries. Alito, as the Atlantic documented, has held firm every single time.
The April 15th tax deadline is coming, and your max refund is a few steps away with TurboTax.
During my impeachment, I cooperated with processes I believe were deeply unfair and politically motivated. I did it because the legitimacy of the institution mattered more than my personal comfort. That's what leadership asks of you. The willingness to subordinate your own interests to something bigger. This isn't just about Samuel Alito. This is about what happens to the entire system when a justice takes a personal phone call from a party to a pending case, refuses to step aside, and then votes in that party's favor. The damage radiates outward. The Supreme Court derives its power entirely from public trust. It has no army. It can't enforce its own rulings. The only reason its decisions carry the weight of law is because the American people believe the court is fair. The moment that belief erodes, the whole structure weakens. In February 2026, the court adopted new automated recusal software, a system that cross-references case filings against each justice's financial interests and personal connections. The highest court in the land had to install a computer program to do what justices were supposed to do on their own. If that's not a tacit admission that self-policing was failing, I don't know what is. Then there's the retirement question. Justice Alito fell ill at a Federalist Society event in March 2026, hospitalized briefly for dehydration. Speculation has been swirling about whether Alito might retire, giving Trump a fourth Supreme Court appointment. Progressive groups are bracing for the possibility that both Alito and Justice Thomas could leave while Trump is in office. When a justice and a president communicate privately while cases are pending, when recusal becomes optional,
that in local.
When the public sees the same justice voting in the president's favor time after time on the emergency docket, the damage compounds. Every litigant before the court wonders, is this process really fair? And once enough people ask those questions, the court's authority starts to dissolve. That's not a partisan observation. That's a structural one. Let me walk you through the political calculus. In the short term, Trump benefits. Every time a case involving executive power reaches the shadow docket, and Bloomberg Law documented 55 emergency docket orders between Trump's inauguration and January 2026, Alito is there. As The Atlantic put it, Alito has become seemingly unwilling to defy President Donald Trump. But short-term advantage and long-term strength are very different things. I learned this in 1994. We pushed too hard on health care, the public felt we'd overreached, and we lost the House for the first time in 40 years. When one side pushes too far, the backlash is inevitable. There's already a formal impeachment resolution on the record, H-Res 1354, introduced by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, targeting both Alito and Justice Thomas. It won't succeed in a Republican Congress, but that resolution is now part of the permanent archive. Future generations will see that members of Congress felt compelled to file articles of impeachment against the sitting justice for his refusal to recuse. That doesn't happen in a healthy democracy. The Alito controversy is feeding into a larger conversation about Supreme Court reform, term limits, binding ethics codes, expanded transparency. These are not fringe ideas anymore. The political ground is shifting. The Republican counterargument is that Democrats are politicizing the judiciary. I take that seriously. But in this case, a phone call on a personal cell phone one day before an emergency petition, followed by a refusal to recuse, followed by a vote in that party's favor. You don't need to be a partisan to see the problem. You just need to care about the rules. Let me lay out several pathways, because history doesn't follow a single track. First, Alito retires. The hospitalization, the CNN reporting. If he steps down while Trump is in office, the president gets a fourth appointment, entrenching the conservative supermajority for a generation. It would become a defining issue of the 2026 midterms.
Who you talking about, Steve
The
Mack?
confirmation fight would make every previous battle look tame. Second.
Yeah, who you talking about, Steve Mack? So, he's not one child has said that he has done anything to him. So what is your fucking point, C-Mac? Why did you come over here disturbing our good sound advice to say he's in pictures? So what about your president with the diaper on? How many has he been in? How many accusations do he have? Give us those numbers. How many has he been in? We waiting. Let me see if you do it. Let's see if you talk about your massa. Yeah, your cult leader. Let's go. You don't want to talk about your big daddy with the pamper on with shit running down his leg? Accused of all type of crimes with minors? Yeah, well, hold up. Since you want to play, let's play. Let's play. I want to play. Since you want to interrupt what we got going on over here, yeah, you better figure out where you are. You better speak before you bring your butt over here. You better check the atmosphere. But yeah, but since you think it's funny, well, let's laugh at your cult leader. Hold on. I got one right here. Yeah. Since he have minors. Yeah, it's in the Epstein files. No, nothing in the Epstein files say that Bill Clinton did anything with a minor. But hold on, little old boy. Yeah, hold on. I've been waiting for one of you clowns. Hold on. Oh yeah, but Trump did. They don't want to talk about that. Yeah, he don't want to talk about that. He ain't got no numbers. He ain't came back yet. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Yeah, that's why we in the war right now. How dare you come over here with this foolishness, and we in a war that we shouldn't even be in because he's scared. He's scared. Yeah, because of all the bodies he have in minors. Oh, but you hold your mute, little boy. Yeah, you played with the wrong person. Hold on. He in a lot of pictures. And hey, like, ooh, look at that big old bumblebee. Are you telling me to sting that ass? It's beautiful. Thank you. Look at that bee. Ain't it big? I ain't never seen that one. Oh, my God. Yeah. I just saw that thing. How dare you? Is this one it? Oh, yeah. Hold on. That ain't it. But I need to tell y'all about it. That's Melania with her whole suit on. Swinging on poles. I just don't believe you thought that you was going to be able to come over here and get away with that. Hold on, baby. God may be on your side because it ain't, I'm not, ooh, I'm keep going. Girl, keep going. Yeah, I want. Where's it at? Oh, where's it at? Fake is real. There go this one. There go. Yeah, you gonna learn today. You don't come over here on foolishness. I don't play like that. You got me bent. Where is this thing at? What is this unavailable? Dang it. NRA instructor and pastor at Texas church that's accused drag queens of corrupting youth have been arrested for SA abuse of relatives aged 6 to 8 in San Antonio, Texas. Yeah. Where is this thing at? I'm a go ahead and start back up, but I'm gonna be looking for it. And as soon as I find it, I'm gonna bring it to you. Yeah. But here go a little treat along the way. Just to let you know what you trying to, everybody laughing at your big daddy. Everybody laughing at your big daddy. Cause he always in the bed with a man. Yeah. And the Iranians, yeah, they know all his benais. Yeah, look at it. He got his legs open, waiting for him. Popping the inside of his leg. Mouth always open. Boy, you better play with something safe. I ain't it. Yeah. Let's go. While I look for it.
Alito stays, but becomes increasingly isolated.
But I'm going to back it up. Just because you thought that you was going to deflect.
How you doing? My name's
Dirty
Spencer. I'm
undies.
from Independence, Louisiana. As you can see, let's see. Can you see?
I don't know why they come over here on foolishness.
Targeting both Alito and Justice Thomas. It won't succeed
Thank you
in a
for
Republican
that, B.
Congress. But that resolution is now
Thank y'all
part
for helping me
of the
reach my
permanent
goal.
archive. Future generations will see that members of Congress felt compelled to file articles of impeachment against the sitting justice for his refusal to recuse. That doesn't happen in a healthy democracy. The Alito controversy is feeding into a larger conversation about Supreme Court reform, term limits, binding ethics codes, expanded transparency. These are not fringe ideas anymore. The political ground is shifting. The Republican counterargument is that Democrats are politicizing the judiciary. I take that seriously. But in this case, a phone call on a personal cell phone one day before an emergency petition, followed by a refusal to recuse, followed by a vote in that party's favor. You don't need to be a partisan to see the problem. You just need to care about the rules. Let me lay out several pathways, because history doesn't follow a single track. First, Alito retires. The hospitalization, the CNN reporting. If he steps down while Trump is in office, the president gets a fourth appointment, entrenching the conservative supermajority for a generation. It would become a defining issue of the 2026 midterms. The confirmation fight would make every previous battle look tame. Second, Alito stays but becomes increasingly isolated. A fissure is opening within the conservative legal movement itself. Roberts, Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch have shown willingness to set limits on presidential authority. If Alito continues as the most reliable pro-Trump vote, he may find himself writing more dissents and fewer majority opinions. Third, institutional reform from the court itself. The automated recusal software was a signal. If public pressure continues, we may see mandatory disclosure rules, clearer recusal standards, perhaps a formal process for handling recusal disputes. Fourth, legislative reform. In a future Congress, meaningful Supreme Court ethics reform could pass. Term limits, a binding code of conduct with enforcement. The Alito situation has become Exhibit A for why reform is needed. But here's what I'm watching most closely. The birthright citizenship case and the Federal Reserve independence case are still before the court. These are fundamental questions about presidential power. How Alito votes will define his legacy more than any phone call. And the expansion of the shadow docket, 55 emergency orders in 1 year, many decided without full briefing or written opinions, is something every American should be paying attention to. American democracy has survived worse. We survived the Civil War. We survived Watergate. We survived my own impeachment. And the process, painful as it was, reminded the country that accountability applies to everyone. We survived because at decisive moments, enough people chose the institution over themselves. When the Saturday night massacre happened, the Attorney General resigned. When the evidence was clear, Republican senators told their own president it was over. Those were acts of patriotism. People saying the country is bigger than any one of us. That's the question Alito faces. Not whether he's conservative, he is, and that's his right. The question is whether he can put the institution above his preferences. Whether he can see how a private phone call with a party to a pending case, followed by a refusal to recuse, followed by a vote in that party's favor, how that looks to the American people. There's a quote from Alito himself from around the time he joined the court. A judge can't have any agenda. The judge's only obligation, and it's a solemn obligation, is to the rule of law. I take him at his earlier word. I hope the spirit of that careful jurist is still alive, because the country needs that version of Samuel Alito more than the combative figure we've been seeing. But I want to say something directly to you. The strength of American democracy has never rested in any single justice or president. It has always rested in you. And the willingness of ordinary citizens to pay attention, demand accountability, show up at voting booths and say, this is my country too. The rules apply to everyone. So here's my ask. Pay attention. Follow these cases. Understand the shadow docket. Hold your leaders accountable, all of them, regardless of party. And never let anyone tell you that the rules don't apply to the people at the top.
Absolutely.
Because the moment we accept that, the American experiment is over. And I am not ready to accept that. Not today, not ever. Thank you for listening.
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Goldman Sachs says that Elon Musk's new AI...
Y'all killed me coming over here wanting to deflect. Was MLA Masop. Put our questions on the super chat, a super sticker. Put them all on super chat, a super sticker.
Breaking news regarding 2 U.S. destroyers being turned back from the Strait of Hormuz after Donald Trump almost got them completely destroyed and almost got everybody on board of these U.S. Navy destroyers killed. In Donald Trump's hubristic ceasefire that he thinks
put all questions on the super chat, a super sticker. It's the only way they will be answered. And if you try to ask me anyway, I'm going to block you. So I'm going to tell you one more time. Put it on the super chat or super sticker. And if you act like you can't hear me, I am going to remove you. In fact, I'm going to remove you anyway. Yeah, I don't want you over here if you can't follow instructions. You feel entitled, and you're not entitled here. You're going to do what I tell you to do, or you're going to get out. Now, what was you saying, Adam, before we were rudely interrupted?
Alright everybody, this is a mess. We have some breaking news regarding 2 U.S. destroyers being turned back from the Strait of Hormuz after Donald Trump almost got them completely destroyed.
Because he lied and said that they was passing through.
U.S. Navy destroyers killed. In Donald Trump's hubristic ceasefire that he thinks he's achieved, he sent 2 U.S. Navy destroyers to go through the Strait of Hormuz and try to test the waters. quite literally, test the waters of the Strait of Hormuz to see if there were mines or if the IRGC was feeling nice today, I guess. Well, almost immediately, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps sent a drone to go threaten these ships, and the risk of even one ship getting blown up in the Strait of Hormuz is absurd. If an oil tanker gets blown up, or if a U.S. destroyer
That's what
gets
they
blown
want.
up in the strait, that escalates tensions in the region so much so that we might as well be back
They
on
don't
day
want
one of
peace.
the war and starting from fresh.
They
Now,
love
this all comes
mayhem.
at a time when J.D. Vance is currently in Islamabad, Pakistan. The Iranians requested J.D. Vance to negotiate with, in particular, because they view Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner as having betrayed them. And Kushner and Witkoff did kind of lead them on, lie to them, say they were about to get a deal, and then Donald Trump struck them relentlessly. So they wanted J.D. Vance there to lead the negotiations, and they know that J.D. Vance is anti-war. The stakes are very high for J.D. Vance's political future. I mean, his 2028 campaign could very well come down to how this goes today. Donald Trump has simultaneously been Adolf Hitler in the sense that he threatened genocide against Iranians, and also been Neville Chamberlain in the sense that he gave a way too generous deal that gave them regional control and essentially appeased them, just like Neville Chamberlain did. So J.D. Vance is walking this tightrope, and we'll see how this all plays out. All that I ask from you guys is to drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. Take a moment and support independent media. We live on YouTube, on Substack, pushing breaking news every day for you all. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who has allowed us to build this new, thriving ecosystem and punch back against MAGA. This is how we win. So thank you. So, Midas Touch reports, not long ago, 2 U.S. Navy destroyers were forced to turn back while attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz after Iran's Revolutionary Guard threatened them and launched a drone towards the ships. Per Bloomberg, citing a regional intelligence official, this directly contradicts CENTCOM's story and reports pushed by some American media outlets citing U.S. officials. So essentially, the Trump administration for the past 12 hours has been pushing this fake story that multiple U.S. tankers and destroyers and oil vessels have made it through the strait.
My son is
Well,
on one of
due to
those
this false
destroyers.
reporting,
I'm
2
scared for
U.S. Navy
his
destroyers
safety.
actually
They sent him
tried to go
back.
through, and they were immediately, quickly turned back by a drone. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps did not give a warning vocally. They sent drones
Yeah.
to almost
God bless
destroy
him.
these ships and kill our service members. So due to Donald
It's
Trump's
intentional.
lies, due to his hubris, due to the fake news that he's pushing about the Strait of Hormuz almost being open any minute now, he almost got Navy destroyers killed. I mean, let's go through the posts that Donald Trump has made over the past few hours. He's been bragging all morning that the Strait of Hormuz is almost open, that the U.S. is winning this war. I'm pretty sure he's claimed that we've completely destroyed all of the military capacity of Iran, which makes no sense because there's still missiles being pointed at Israel, still missiles being fired by Israel into Lebanon, still Iranian missiles being launched, we still have drones being launched. The war is not done and Iran is not decapacitated in any way. He said 4 hours ago, the fake news media is crazy or just plain corrupt. The United States has completely destroyed Iran's military, including their entire Navy and Air Force and everything else. Their leadership is dead. The Strait of Hormuz will soon be open, and the empty ships are rushing to the United States to load up. But if you listen to the fake news, we're losing. Listen, I've been saying on my channel that we are losing this war, and it's a bit more nuanced than that once you dive into it. Militarily, we have the advantage over Iran. Nobody is going to deny that, but Iran has found a way to wage asymmetric warfare, and when you look at what we've gotten out of this war, it's more of a loss than a win. So 86-year-old Khamenei was killed, and his 30-year younger son is in place. We destroyed their 60-year-old navy, but they still have control over the Strait of Hormuz, regional grip, and are making so much damn money that they can rebuild whatever we destroyed. Yeah, it's not a victory at all. They still have the enriched uranium. They can still make the nukes that Donald Trump is scared of. We haven't gotten anything. He then sends an even longer post. At about 7 a.m., he says the fake news media has lost total credibility. Not that they hadn't any to begin with. He then goes on a long rant about how we've taken out their missile and drone factories.
Just blind.
He says their missile and drone factories have been
And then they
largely
come over here.
obliterated, along with missiles and drones themselves. Most importantly, their leaders are no longer with us. Praise be to Allah. So he did that again.
Just
But
lying.
the reality is, Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is closed because drones and mines and suicide vessels are there ready to strike. Maybe this is the reason why J.D. Vance himself, who's in Islamabad negotiating, had his team leak an article a few weeks back. And this article detailed how J.D. Vance was the only person to push back against this war during the Situation Room meetings. Now,
They
the
set
real
that
reporting
lie
that we've
up.
gotten from multiple people is that J.D. Vance said, if you're going to do it fast, do it swiftly, do it decisively, and get it over with. But he said overall, he doesn't want it to happen whatsoever. Now, Donald Trump is essentially throwing J.D. Vance under the bus by saying, we're not going to let you distance yourself from this war. We're not going to give it to Marco Rubio. No, we're going to send you into the heart of the lion so you can negotiate with Iran and very likely come out not on top. The Kobasi letter says, breaking. Initial details are emerging as the U.S. and Iran conduct their first meeting since 1979. Here are the details that we got just less than an hour ago. Details include 1. The Strait of Hormuz remains a point of serious disagreement. In fact, the meeting reached a standstill and was essentially halted after the Strait of Hormuz became a serious disagreement and after these drones began to attack U.S. ships. To continue, number 2, U.S. military says 2 warships have transited the Strait of Hormuz today.
Big retailers just banned our lighter, and honestly, we're not surprised because we didn't build this thing to sit on a
But it seems like the U.S. military was lying because they are now being attacked by drones. Number 2, U.S. military says 2 U.S. warships have transited the Strait of Hormuz today, but it seems like the military is lying because we now see drone attacks against the very same vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Number 3, mood swings are being seen on both sides in these talks per Pakistani mediators. Number 4, the U.S. will be assisting Iran in removing mines from the Strait of Hormuz. Talks are expected to continue tonight and may extend into tomorrow. We'll have more details in the coming hours. It seems like Netanyahu has no plans to tone down this war. In fact, he's giving a speech right now, and he's talking about how the campaign against
More
Iran
deadly. Good night, Kelly.
is not over. He's detailing how the campaign against Iran is not over, they still have much more to do, and he's essentially talking about how Israel will continue to escalate this war even as the United States tries to tone it down. Quite the allies we have there. One more Donald Trump Truth Social post that he sent early in the morning, 8 hours ago. He said, massive numbers of completely empty oil tankers, some of the largest in the world, are heading right now to the United States to load up with their best and sweetest oil anywhere in the world. We have more oil than the next 2 largest oil companies and economies combined. We're waiting for you. Quick turnaround. The reality is, oil prices are national. They are globalized. The entire globe is affected by oil prices when they shift. So the United States does not have a monopoly on oil. We are affected by the Strait of Hormuz. That is why Donald Trump is so desperate to find an off-ramp. And again, J.D. Vance is largely failing thus far. This war is largely a failure thus far, and the Strait of Hormuz is actively being closed while this is happening, therefore directly contradicting CENTCOM's claims that ships can go through.
Lies. I knew something was up with that when they say 2 of them was passing through today. Just lying. Just lying. Making up stuff. Putting people in harm's way. Ugh. Disgusting. Ugh.
States and Iran have failed. Let me repeat that. The talks in Islamabad between the United States and Iran have failed. Let me repeat that. The talks in Islamabad between the United States and Iran have failed, despite Donald Trump stating that he would agree to negotiate within Iran's 10-point framework, which began this ceasefire process leading to negotiations between the Trump regime, the United States, and Iran in Islamabad. When the negotiations started to take place in Islamabad, the Trump regime wanted to change the negotiating framework and wanted to impose Donald Trump's plans on Iran. Iran refused, said, you agreed to our framework. The negotiations lasted over 14 hours. J.D. Vance just came out moments ago and stated that the negotiations are now over. He says Iran refuses to accept our ultimatum and our demands, and this is very
Put
bad
our
news,
questions
J.D.
on a
Vance
super
says,
chat, a super
but it's
sticker.
much worse for Iran. It's worse news for them than it is for the United States. Moments ago, J.D. Vance went out and held a press conference saying that these peace talks are now off. Iran's refusing to accept the demands being unilaterally imposed by the United States. And I should note, while J.D. Vance is holding this press conference, folks, Donald Trump is in Florida at a UFC match right now, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio is there clapping for Donald Trump. Donald Trump walking all around looking cognitively and physically addled at this UFC match right now, while the negotiations in Islamabad have completely broken down. Folks, this appears to mean that the war is going to resume. Frankly, as I was saying before, this was a ceasefire, a name only, a way for Donald Trump just to manipulate the markets. Now, here is what J.D. Vance said in the press conference moments ago from Islamabad, saying that there is no agreement. He says Iran has chosen not to accept our terms. Here, play this clip.
Marshall Munir, who were both incredible hosts, and whatever shortcomings in the negotiation, it wasn't because of the Pakistanis, who did an amazing job and really tried to help us and the Iranians bridge the gap and get to a deal. We've been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
Well, it should be noted that the United States accepted Iran's terms, the 10-point plan, going into this negotiation.
Right.
And then Donald Trump does what Donald Trump always does his entire life, commit fraud, and try to change the terms. If you didn't like the terms to begin with, then don't agree to Iran's 10-point negotiating framework, where Iran would be able to continue enriching uranium, control the Strait of Hormuz, and charge $2 million per vessel. It would provide security guarantees for Iran, Hezbollah, Iran proxy groups like the Houthis, and the Shiites in the Shiite militia groups in Iraq. It would provide full reparations to Iran, remove all sanctions from Iran. Y'all agreed to the 10-point term, Trump regime. Then you went in there and said, nope, we're not agreeing to it. We want to control the Strait of Hormuz. We want to do a joint venture with you and Iran. It's like, well, that's not what you agreed to, and that's not what we're agreeable with. We control the Strait of Hormuz. More from J.D. Vance right here, who said, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. He repeats that again. Let's play this clip.
Is there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranian frozen assets come up and did you reach any?
You wasn't winning.
We talked
They
about
didn't
all
start
those
it.
issues, Jen, and we talked about a number of issues beyond that. And so
You
certainly
need to
those
have
things came up,
terms
but
and
again,
conditions with Bibi
we just
Netanyahu.
could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. I think that we were quite flexible. We were quite accommodating. The president told us, you need to come here in good faith and make your best effort to get a deal. We did that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make any headway. Preston.
And then he goes on to say it's really Iran's fault because we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon.
Israel's fault.
And they refuse to agree to our
And Donald
terms
Trump's
on
fault.
that point. Well, they agreed to your terms on that point in late February, and then you invaded with Netanyahu Iran anyway. And then in the 10-point framework, it actually says, I mean, we all read it, Iran can continue uranium enrichment. Here, play this clip right here.
It's pretty upsetting when you can pay for a certain amount of download and the upload speed doesn't match that.
So what I like about Google.
Questions?
So, Nick Robertson from CNN. Precisely what have they rejected here? Can you help us understand it a little bit?
Well, I won't go into all the details because I don't want to negotiate in public after we negotiated for 21 hours in private. But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will. Jen.
Is there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranians...
Now, before J.D. Vance announced that the negotiations in Iran were, the negotiations with Iran and Islamabad were a failure, we were hearing from Iran's regime media. Here's what they posted. The excessive demands of the American side, especially regarding the Strait of Hormuz, have so far prevented the establishment of a common framework for negotiations. Negotiations continue, and it is unclear whether they will definitely be extended for one day or the terms will return to the capitals for consultation. So that was before it was officially announced. Negotiations off. Talks are an utter failure, and what they were saying is that the very framework of the negotiation could not even be agreed upon because when the U.S. showed up, J.D. Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner changed the entire framework of the negotiations. There was also an incident in the Strait of Hormuz earlier today where the United States claimed it sent 2 destroyers to successfully sweep mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Then CENTCOM posted a successful mission was launched by the United States to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They were bragging about it. Turned out that was a complete and utter lie. There were a few ships that got through the Strait of Hormuz. A Chinese vessel, an Indian vessel, were the vessels that actually left. Not these 2 destroyers. What actually happened, and now that's being confirmed by independent news sources as well, is that the United States tried to send 2 destroyers through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran then sent its navy out and said, if you continue, we're going to blow up these ships. The destroyers of the United States Navy turned around and went the other way. And then CENTCOM in the United States claimed that there was a successful mission when the U.S. destroyer ships tried to sneak in during the mediation and the settlement discussions that were taking place in Islamabad. That's when the U.S. tried to use that opportunity to get the destroyers in. That was not successful, but there was the Chinese ship and the Indian ship that were able to go in there. Also, the Wall Street Journal and New York Times and others were reporting that the Chinese are now providing a lot more weapons and supplies to Iran, anti-aircraft weapons, as well as other technologies that would be critical if this war is to resume. Going back more to what Iran's media was talking about as it relates to these negotiations before it was declared a total failure. They write, a new round of trilateral negotiations between Iran, the United States, and Pakistan began just minutes ago. Tasman correspondent dispatched to the negotiation site said the following: given the excessive demands of the United States, it appears this is the Iranians' team final opportunity to the Americans for reaching a common framework for this round of talks. So folks, we didn't even get to the framework because the U.S. showed up and tried to change the negotiating framework. So there were hours and hours of no progress. The U.S. wanted to control the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. wanted to impose its terms. Iran said no, they're not doing that. Iran also put out the following message through their official Navy correspondence. They write, any attempt by military vessels to pass through the Strait of Hormuz will face a firm response. The IRGC Navy has full authority and maintains intelligent control over the Strait of Hormuz, is what they write. Now, there's always a tweet for everything. Donald Trump back on January 3rd, 2020 writes, Iran never won a war but never lost a negotiation. Now, before Donald Trump went to that UFC fight and before the negotiations officially were declared a failure, Donald Trump was giving a bizarre and deranged press conference from outside of the White House where he said, we're sweeping the Strait of Hormuz. Whether we make a deal or not, we've won. Like a miracle, the Strait of Hormuz Hormuz is open. No, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. You tried to send destroyers in there while there were negotiations taking place in Islamabad, and then that destroyer turned the opposite direction. Here's what Donald Trump said. Play this clip.
When I started my record label, the business side of things, taxes, finances.
We're going to see what happens. We're in very deep negotiations with Iran. We win regardless. We've defeated them militarily. They've dropped a couple of water mines. You call them water mines in the boat. We've defeated all of their water boats too. Their Navy has gone 158 ships. They have 28 water droppers, mine droppers they call them. All of them are sunk. They probably have a couple of mines in the water. We have minesweepers out there. We're sweeping the strait. In addition to that, we're negotiating. Whether we make a deal or not makes no difference to me.
Then a reporter said, so it's clear that Iran is not going to leave the Strait of Hormuz. And then Trump starts yelling at the reporter. Play this clip.
How do you know that? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? You don't know anything. Who are you with?
NBC News, doing circuit.
ABC?
NBC.
Well, let's take news.
Mr. President.
Let me just tell you, we win, no matter what. We've defeated their military. They have no navy. 158 ships are underwater, undersea. All of their minesweepers and all of their, they call them mine droppers. Can you imagine a country has 28 mine droppers? You think that's nice? With all of that being said, they're all defeated, by the way. They're all at the bottom of the sea. Now, with all of that, they have no navy. They have no radar. They have no air force. Their leaders are all dead. Khomeini is gone. For many years, he ruled. He's gone. With all of that, let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care. Thank you.
And Donald Trump's like, even though we don't need to do anything, and we don't like NATO, and we don't care about Europe or our allies, he's like, that doesn't matter. We're still cleaning up the Strait of Hormuz anyway. Play this clip.
The media, credibility down to 13%. Think of it. We defeated their Navy. We defeated their Air Force. We defeated their anti-aircraft. We defeated their radar. We defeated their leaders. Their leaders are all dead. And now all we do is we'll open up the strait even though we don't use it because we have a lot of other countries in the world that do use it that are either afraid or weak or cheap. I don't know what it is, but we were not helped by NATO, that I can tell you.
Then Donald Trump responds to a reporter asking about the possibility that China is sending weapons to Iran. Here's what Donald Trump said. He just starts like getting angry and starts yelling. Here, play this clip.
Let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care. Thank you. Well, if China does that, China could have big problems.
Yep, so as Ross Hendricks explains, it should be now obvious that Trump's acknowledgement that Iran's 10-point plan was an acceptable framework for negotiations was yet another attempt and desperate attempt by the Trump regime to manipulate the markets last week. The U.S. is not in any way interested in accepting the 10-point negotiating framework. The negotiations have failed. While they have failed, Donald Trump is now making social media posts about UFC fights in front of the White House. The UFC Freedom Fight, 250th Freedom Fight, 250th anniversary. Folks, an utterly deranged regime in the United States, an utter failure by the United States. Remember, the United States says Iran has no cards. Well, they just use their cards, folks. We'll keep you posted throughout the day.
Okay,
Get
y'all, I'm
subscribed.
finna go to
Help
sleep.
us get to
Good
7
night.
million subscribers. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually
Good
be
night.
subscribed, so hit subscribe
Thank
right
you,
now.
Joe.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, thank you. What has popped up now? What is this? Who's next? Oh. Okay, this is going to be the last
one
one.
across Pacific alliances, and one inside Iran. Iran told the United States who to send. Not suggested, not hinted, told. and America complied.
Yep.
Before a single negotiator boarded a plane to Pakistan, before a single clause of any potential agreement was discussed, Tehran made one thing absolutely clear. The only person they would sit across from was J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States. John Bolton, the man who served as Trump's national security advisor during his first term, the man who knows exactly how this administration thinks, sat down with foreign policy this week and said something that should stop you cold. He said that the moment America allowed its adversary to select its negotiating team, the outcome of those talks was already compromised. According to Bolton, that single concession, before any negotiation even began, signals a shift in leverage that no deal can fully recover from. That is where we are today. But what you're about to hear goes much further than a diplomatic protocol dispute. Because while the world watched J.D. Vance step off a plane in Islamabad, 3 separate crises were unfolding simultaneously. One in European airports, one across Pacific alliances, and one inside Iran's own government, that are reshaping the pressure on both sides in ways that mainstream coverage has almost entirely missed. Let's break all of it down. First, hit subscribe right now if you want the truth without the corporate filter. We cover what they won't every single day. Before J.D. Vance had even landed in Pakistan, a senior Iranian source told Reuters something remarkable. According to that source, described as a high-ranking official with direct knowledge of the negotiations, the United States had already agreed to unfreeze Iranian assets held in Qatar. The deal, the source claimed, was essentially done. The money was moving. America had made a goodwill gesture before the first formal handshake. Hours later, a U.S. official told CBS News the exact opposite. No assets had been discussed. No agreement had been reached. Nothing had moved. According to the American source, Iran's claim was, in their words, completely unfounded. 2 official statements, completely irreconcilable. One of them is a deliberate fabrication. Here's why this matters beyond the obvious. There actually are billions of dollars in frozen Iranian funds sitting in Qatar right now, and that backstory is genuinely important. During the final months of the Biden administration, a deal was reached to transfer between $3 and $5 billion in Iranian oil revenues, originally held in South Korean banks, to Qatar as a temporary holding point, with the funds destined eventually for Tehran. At the last moment, Biden reversed the decision. The money stayed in Qatar, frozen, and has sat there ever since. That money is now one of Iran's primary demands in Islamabad. According to analysts tracking the talks, Tehran views the unfreezing of those assets, along with additional frozen funds in Japan, India, and Iraq, as a precondition for any serious movement on Hormuz. The total figure across all jurisdictions runs into the tens of billions of dollars. So when Iran's source told Reuters the money was already moving, they weren't fabricating a number out of thin air. They were making a very calculated move, planting a story that forces America into a corner. If Washington doesn't deny it, Iran's domestic audience believes they've already won a concession. If Washington does deny it, Iran can claim America is negotiating in bad faith. It's information warfare, and both sides are playing it hard. But here's the detail that reveals just how much pressure America is operating under heading into these talks. And it has nothing to do with missiles or military deployments. Reports emerged this week that major European airports had begun issuing internal emergency warnings about jet fuel supplies. The warning, within approximately 3 weeks, aviation fuel stocks at several European hubs could fall to critically low levels. Airlines were being told they may be unable to refund passengers for canceled flights. And at Heathrow, one of the busiest airports on the planet, a private fuel supplier reportedly declared a formal emergency status over its supply chain. This isn't a story about inconvenience. It is a story about economic paralysis. Jet fuel, known as aviation turbine fuel or Jet A1, is not the same as diesel or regular gasoline. It requires a significantly more complex refining process, tighter molecular specifications, and substantially longer lead times to produce. Not simply redirect crude oil from an alternative source and have usable aviation fuel within days. The pipeline from crude to aircraft tank typically takes weeks under normal conditions. And Europe has now spent nearly 7 weeks watching its primary supply route through the Persian Gulf, past Hormuz, through the Suez Canal, operate at a fraction of normal capacity. According to CBS News tracking data, on a single day last week, only 6 ships transited the Strait of Hormuz. The pre-war daily average was over 140. The math is brutally simple. 6 weeks of drastically reduced throughput combined with jet fuel's extended refining timeline means the supply shortage that was theoretical 2 weeks ago is now concrete and measurable. Here is why this lands directly on Washington's desk. Europe is the largest single trading partner of the United States economy. When European aviation starts grounding flights, when cargo cannot move, when business travelers cannot connect, when tourism collapses across the continent, that damage does not stay in Europe. It flows directly into American export revenues, American financial markets, and American companies with European operations. Trump is not just negotiating in Islamabad to help Iran. He is negotiating to prevent a transatlantic economic crisis that he helped create and that is now arriving faster than anyone publicly acknowledged. And Europe is not even the most alarming pressure point. That distinction belongs to what is happening in Asia right now. Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines are 3 of the most strategically critical American allies on the planet. They host American military installations. They operate within U.S.-centered security frameworks built over 7 decades. Their entire national defense architecture assumes an American umbrella. They also import virtually all of their energy. CNN reported this week that the prolonged Hormuz blockade is generating a genuine energy emergency across Pacific Asia, and that the governments of Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines are now actively exploring options that Washington has explicitly told them to avoid. Those options are negotiating directly with Iran for tanker passage through Iranian-controlled Hormuz corridors, or purchasing oil from Russia through alternative supply channels. Both paths lead to the same destination, a visible, documented break from American foreign policy at one of the most sensitive moments in post-war alliance history. And then there is China. Analysts cited in CNN's coverage noted that Beijing has reportedly offered to help resolve energy shortfalls for countries in its immediate neighborhood, including, according to one source, potentially Taiwan. Think carefully about what that sentence represents. China positioning itself as the energy stabilizer for Taiwan, a territory it claims sovereignty over, while America is locked in a diplomatic standoff in Islamabad. That is not a footnote to this crisis. That is a potential strategic shift with consequences that would outlast this war by decades. The analysis here is pointed and important. America may not lose this conflict militarily, but according to foreign policy analysts tracking the alliance fallout, the United States risks losing something more durable: the loyalty and dependence of its closest Asian partners, built slowly over generations, eroded in a matter of weeks by an energy crisis that Washington neither anticipated nor managed. Russia and China, meanwhile, have benefited from nearly every dimension of this conflict. They have watched American military equipment get depleted. They have absorbed the diplomatic dividends of Iranian resistance. And now they are positioning themselves as the alternative energy providers for countries that have no other immediate options. That context is essential for understanding why John Bolton's assessment of how this war was conducted carries so much weight, and why it was so uncomfortable to watch. The foreign policy interview between editor Ravi Agrawal and John Bolton this week was genuinely remarkable, not just for its content, but for its atmosphere. Bolton was visibly tense throughout, at several points cutting off the interviewer mid-sentence to demand more speaking time. At one point, he told Agrawal directly, "You're either here to talk or to listen, not both." That tension matters, because what Bolton was saying clearly frustrated him on a level that went beyond television performance. His central diagnosis: Trump launched this war without a functioning National Security Council, without briefing Congress, without coordinating with allies, and, most critically, without ever explaining to the American public what victory was actually supposed to look like. Bolton's argument on that last point was specific and sharp. He said that if a president is going to commit military force, the population needs to understand not just what is being done, but why it is necessary, and what achieving the objective actually requires. Trump, in Bolton's view, failed every one of those steps. The result is a public that is confused and increasingly angry, not because they oppose confronting Iran in principle, but because they were never given a coherent case for what this particular war was trying to accomplish. According to Bolton, the goal should have been, and should still be, regime change in Tehran. His argument: any Iranian government that survives this conflict will draw the lesson that its ballistic missile program works, that absorbing punishment is survivable, and that America can be negotiated back to the table on Iranian terms. That lesson, Bolton contends, makes the region more dangerous in 5 years than it was before the war started. He was equally direct about the weapons that Trump acknowledged sending to Iranian opposition groups through Kurdish intermediaries, weapons that Trump himself admitted were kept by the Kurds rather than distributed to Iranian protesters. Bolton's reaction was restrained but unmistakable. That kind of operational failure is precisely what happens when you run a war without institutional oversight, without the interagency process, and without the people who exist specifically to prevent those mistakes. The interviewer pushed back. He pointed out that the Iranian regime has not collapsed, has not fractured, and has not shown any visible signs of internal revolt, even after the supreme leader was killed and his successor was severely wounded. Doesn't that suggest the regime is more resilient than Bolton's framework assumes? Bolton's answer was careful. He said every leadership succession creates fractures, not visible ones, not publicly documented ones, but real ones. Power transitions are inherently destabilizing internally, regardless of how unified a government appears from the outside. The question, in his view, is not whether those fractures exist. It's whether America chooses to exploit them or walks away before they become consequential. And that brings us to the piece of information about Iran's supreme leader that Reuters published this week. Information that changes the picture of what those internal fractures might actually look like. Reuters published a report sourced from 3 individuals described as being close to Iran's inner circle. The report revealed that Mojtaba Khamenei, the man who assumed the position of supreme leader after his father was killed in the early stages of this war, sustained severe injuries during an assassination attempt at the beginning of the conflict. According to Reuters, Khamenei may have lost one leg. He reportedly suffered significant facial disfigurement. He is conducting all government business through audio calls only and has not made any public appearance since assuming leadership. Intelligence assessments cited in the Reuters report suggest he may not appear publicly for at least another month or two. Let that sink in for a moment. The supreme leader
And they
of
still
Iran,
winning.
the single most powerful person in a theocratic government structure, the man whose authority transcends parliament, transcends the presidency, transcends the judiciary, is operating in total secrecy, physically incapacitated, communicating only by voice, and unable to present himself to his own people. This is not a stable foundation for governing a country at war, and it is not a stable foundation for reaching a durable agreement. The practical consequence is that Mohammed Bakr Kalibaf, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, appears to be the figure with the most operational authority over the Islamabad negotiations. But Kalibaf's mandate is institutional, not ideological. He does not carry the religious legitimacy that the Supreme Leader's office provides. And any deal he agrees to will face scrutiny from hardline factions who can challenge its theological basis. This is the pressure on Iran's side of the table. It's not just economic, though Iran's economy has been severely damaged. It's structural. The country's decision-making authority is currently concentrated in the hands of a parliament speaker negotiating on behalf of a leader who cannot be seen in public and whose internal standing within the clerical establishment remains uncertain. Here is the honest picture of where both delegations stand in Islamabad. America is under pressure from European fuel emergencies, collapsing Asian alliances, a domestic public that was never properly prepared for this war, a midterm election cycle that analysts describe as potentially catastrophic for Republicans, and a war that Trump's own former national security advisor says accomplished none of its stated objectives. Iran is under pressure from a shattered economy, a supreme leader who is physically incapacitated and politically invisible, a military that has had its air force, radar networks, and intelligence infrastructure significantly degraded, and a society that, whatever its political orientation, has absorbed enormous punishment. Both sides need something from this room. Neither side can afford to appear to be the one that blinked. That dynamic, mutual desperation masked by mutual defiance, is what makes the information warfare between both delegations so intense. When Iran tells Reuters that America already released frozen assets before talks began, that's not just spin. It's a pressure tactic designed to make America look weak domestically while giving Iranian hardliners a narrative of early victory to sell at home. And when America flatly denies it through CBS News, that denial is equally calculated, designed to reassure a domestic audience that the administration is not capitulating to a government it spent 6 weeks bombing. The real question, the one Bolton was driving at throughout his foreign policy interview, is whether a deal reached under these conditions by these parties can actually hold. Because the historical record of agreements with governments that believe they have survived and won is not encouraging. Governments that feel they've called America's bluff don't sign compliance-friendly agreements. They sign agreements they intend to reinterpret the moment the pressure lifts. Both delegations in Islamabad walked in carrying two things: a document they claim is the agreement, and a definition of success that the other side would never accept. Iran requested J.D. Vance by name and got him. America denied releasing frozen assets while Iran's state-adjacent media celebrated the transfer. European airports issued jet fuel emergencies that nobody in Washington planned for. Japan and South Korea are quietly calling Moscow. And the man who runs Iran is doing so from a recovery bed, by audio call, with a body his own government cannot show the world. Bolton thinks the war should continue until the regime is gone. Trump reportedly wants an exit before the midterms. Iran thinks it has already won. And the oil market, which doesn't care about anyone's talking points, just pushed Brent crude past $97 and is watching every development in Islamabad in real time. The gap between both sides is not a negotiating gap. It is a gap in fundamental assumptions about who won, who lost, and what any agreement is actually worth. Subscribe and hit the notification.
Okay. So this is the last one.
I just got my latest mini shipment. I think I've got this like 3 times now. I always get their sweat control line, this stick.
And others who would hang out at Mar-a-Lago. And tick-tock, Melania, you're not going to be able to hide it much longer. Your dark past continues to surface, and there's nothing you can do about it. Frantically, you can try to hold a press conference where you act like you're supporting the survivors. They see through it. The American people see through it, Melania. We know what you were up to in the past, your very dark past, and these secrets behind Melania Trump's bizarre, disturbing press conference this week where she talked about the Epstein files. Well, the secrets about why she was holding that press conference are becoming more apparent. Let me posit my opinion, as I have a right to do under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Perhaps one of Melania's former close friends who may know some information.
Yeah, I need for y'all to hit the like button.
Melania's former close friends who may know some information has been speaking to Democrats on the House Oversight Committee about Epstein, about people in Epstein's cabal, about her knowledge regarding Melania and Donald and others who would hang out at Mar-a-Lago and who were part of that scene together. What if I told you this individual said that she had nothing to lose on social media posts and she was going to expose it all? She was going to expose it all, Melania, and then you ran and held that press conference. I think that's what happened. Let's rewind and let's tell the story of what I think happened, in my opinion. Take a look at this photo right here. On the left, Paolo Zampoli, Donald Trump, a young boy, Melania Trump, and a woman over there who we will be talking more about. Her name is Amanda Ungaro. She was dating Paolo Zampoli for about 19 years. In the middle, that's their son together. And recently, Amanda Ungaro, the end of 2025, was deported. Talking more about, her name is Amanda Ungaro. She was dating Paolo Zampoli for about 19 years. In the middle, that's their son together. And recently, Amanda Ungaro, the end of 2025, was deported by ICE to Brazil. That's where she was from. She arrived in the United States when she was 17 years old. She was brought here by a guy named Jean-Luc Brunel when she was 17 years old. And
She was
Jean-Luc
trafficked.
Brunel ran the sex trafficking ring for Jeffrey Epstein. Jean-Luc Brunel purportedly died by suicide a few years back in a French prison, but he was one of Jeffrey Epstein's traffickers, and he brought Amanda Ungaro to the United States. As part of the scene, you would have Paolo Zampoli and Trump and Epstein. They'd all hang out with each other. Ungaro, 19 years ago, a while ago, was able to meet Paolo Zampoli. They were together for 19 years. They had a son together. And when Donald Trump won during his first term, Paolo Zampoli became a very influential figure within the Trump regime because he was the individual who was running a modeling agency in the 1990s who introduced Donald Trump with Melania. Paolo Zampoli ran a modeling agency, this ID model agency, where he brought over young European girls and women. He would then throw parties in Manhattan at a place called the Kit Kat Club with lions and tigers and zoo animals, and these were wild parties apparently. And he would introduce the wealthy Manhattan businessmen to the European girls or the women that he brought over from Europe. He would help them get their paperwork or make assertions to get paperwork for paths to citizenship in the United States or for temporary status here in the United States. It was part of what Zampoli did as part of his modeling agency. And in the late 90s, he introduced, although there's sometimes disputes about the days, but we'll just say late 90s, he introduced Melania to Donald Trump at one such party in the Kit Kat Club. He helped Melania with her paperwork to get purportedly this Einstein visa, where she got this expedited visa. And then she met Donald Trump, and the rest is history there. She marries Donald Trump. She then brings her family over through a process that is referred to in a very derogative way by MAGA Republicans as chain migration. The rest is history. Now, Paolo Zampoli was dating for a very long time, boyfriend, girlfriend, with Amanda Ungaro. Amanda Ungaro and Paolo Zampoli were invited to all of the events during the first Trump term, and even thereafter. They hung out at Mar-a-Lago. They went to all of the places together. They were in lots of photos together. In fact, Amanda Ungaro, for a short period of time, was named the ceremonial ambassador to Grenada. She's actually named a ceremonial ambassador to a country. Right now, Paolo Zampoli has an ambassador position with an ambassador title. He's like a special envoy for American partnerships, and so most recently he was in Hungary with J.D. Vance in order to help prop up Viktor Orban, but he basically gets to travel the world with this position and kind of be the social chair liaison for the Trump regime, given this ambassador title, rewarded, if you will, for his relationship with Donald Trump and just being part of that crew at that time period. His name appears over and over and over again on the Epstein files, and he recently told the press, isn't it a good thing when your name's on the Epstein files? Because if you're left out, isn't that bad? Like, the cool people were all over the Epstein files. Like, that shows you were influential. No, Paolo Zampoli, it's not what it shows. But let's tie all of this together with Melania. Melania came here from Slovenia. Ungaro came here from Brazil. And they ran in similar circles. Zampoli was close to the Trumps. Ungaro was close to Melania. Zampoli probably spoke and told a lot of things to Ungaro, notably because they never got married. When you're married, Ungaro came here from Brazil, and they ran in similar circles. Zampoli was close to the Trumps. Ungaro was close to Melania. Zampoli probably spoke and told a lot of things to Ungaro, notably because they never got married. When you're married to somebody under United States law, there's something called a marital privilege, where you can't ask one spouse to testify against another spouse. The spouses have what's called a marital privilege, unless, of course, they're discussing crimes. There are exceptions to a marital privilege. But in any event, Zampoli and Ungaro were never married, so there's no marital privilege there. And one of the things we've been learning is that it seems Ungaro, maybe perhaps voluntarily, has been speaking with Democrats on the House Oversight Committee about things that she knows, possibly. Things that she knows about Melania, things that she knows about Paulo, things that she knows about Jeffrey Epstein, things that she knows about Melania, things that she knows about these people. So why would she be talking? Is she still with Paulo? She's not. They had a custody dispute a few years back. She remarried to a physician in Miami, Florida, and they had a custody dispute over the child who you see in these photos. And a recent New York Times report.
I just made a $27 ebook in 2 minutes using AI. Watch how I did it, so you can do it too. Here.
Stated that Paulo Zampoli, and he denies it, but the Trump and their ilk tend to lie about everything. And Paulo Zampoli, according to this New York Times article, called ICE to get them to help deport his ex-girlfriend, Amanda Ungaro, and send her back to Brazil so that he could keep custody of their kid, and that he would send her out there. And so she got sent to Brazil. Her kid was basically taken from her. She's got nothing to lose, as she's been putting it, because her life has been ripped away. She's been deported by ICE on this Trump regime. And it makes you also wonder, was part of the reason to deport her was that she knew some secrets as well, in addition to the custody dispute. But she was deported to Brazil, and she knows all this information, she says. That's what she says. Now, Melania is saying, do not listen to all these people, they are liars. I do not know Epstein. I had no connections with him. There's no documents, there's no photos, everything is fake. Remember Melania's press conference? Everything is fake. Don't believe what you see. And again, we talked about how there are emails from you, Melania, from 2002 to Ghislaine Maxwell calling her G and saying, hey, G, great New York Magazine article. You look great in the photos. J.E., Jeffrey Epstein came out great. We should hang out soon. Looking forward to seeing you. Yeah, the New York Magazine article you were praising, Melania, was the one where Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were in, and Donald Trump said Epstein's a great guy who likes women on the younger side, beautiful women on the younger side. That New York Magazine article where you were saying that Ghislaine Maxwell looked great and Jeffrey Epstein was amazing in it, that was like the red flag article where it was like, yeah, the New York Magazine was, I think, trying to tell people, although the editor really kind of betrayed the truth and some of the witnesses, but they were hinting out what was going on with Epstein's sex trafficking ring at the time. But the editor didn't, I think, removed a lot of the stuff because they were afraid of liability at the time. Oh, and then Ghislaine Maxwell responded to you, Melania, and said, hey, sweet pea, things are great. And y'all seem to have nicknames for each other, but I guess you're saying what? All of that's fake? All of the photos of you together are fake? Okay. So now that you held this press conference where you said everything was fake, you also called upon the survivors and demanded. You said Congress needs to hold hearings, bring the survivors in, let the survivors testify about the sex trafficking that they went through. And Melania goes, but I want to be clear, I'm not a survivor. I'm not a victim, but let's have the survivors testify. And the survivors are like, why are you re-traumatizing us, Melania? Stop invoking our names. We've done what we had to do. You know who should be coming in? People like Howard Lutnick. People in Trump's cabinet. Donald Trump should be testifying. Why are you putting more burden on us? We've been fighting for justice all these years. Let's call in the perpetrators. Let's call in the cabal. Let's have them testify. That's what the survivors have been saying. And then some of the information came out right after Melania held that press conference, that weird White House press conference that we were covering, that Paulo Zampoli said that he wants to have his deposition taken because he wants to set the record straight. He says, I want to set the record straight, he says, that it was not Jeffrey Epstein who introduced Donald Trump and Melania. It was me. I introduced. I don't think it makes it much better that you were the one who introduced
Right. Now they bragging.
Donald Trump to Melania versus you were close friends with Epstein. So is Paolo Zampoli walking into a trap right now too that he's setting for himself, or walking into something where he should be cross-examined about what were you doing? What was your modeling agency about? What do you mean that you brought these individuals from Eastern Europe? Imagine deposing Paolo Zampoli now about Melania Trump's immigration status and how she got the Einstein visa. I mean, how great would it be to have Paolo Zampoli? Like, they're opening up the floodgates right now to Melania's dark past. Remember, Melania said that she graduated from the University of Slovenia, and then it turned out she dropped out after her first year, and she made that up. And she acted like she was this big, fancy superstar model. And it was like, I don't really think those photos that they keep showing of Russia, of you naked, where there's high quality photos of like a superstar model, but what do I know? What do I know? What do I know?
Sure,
So when Paolo Zampoli was like, I want to have my deposition taken recently, then it all kind of made sense. So this is really about Ungaro, right? And let's take a look at what Amanda Ungaro's posts are. She goes, hello, Melania. I was around you for 20 years. You knew I was inside ICE, and you know what hurts after all this time? I stayed close to your family, your mother and your father, not because of you, but because of them, at events and everything else. So shut your mouth when speaking about me, because I will expose everything I know until you fall as a little chicken. I have nothing left to lose in my life. I will tear down the entire system. Be careful with me, bitch. I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it's the last thing I do in my life. I will go all the way. I'm not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are and who your husband is. We'll take legal action against you and your pedophile husband. I have known you for 20 years. You knew I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I'm not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character. Do you know what I think about you after 20 years? And so she's saying,
you tried to pull her in?
Star model, but what do I know? What do I know? What do I know? So when Paolo Zampoli was like, I want to have my deposition taken recently, then it all kind of made sense. So this is really about Ungaro, right? And let's take a look at what Amanda Ungaro's posts are. She goes, hello, Melania. I was around you for 20 years. You knew I was inside ICE, and you know what hurts after all this time? I stayed close to your family, your mother and your father, not because of you, but because of them, at events and everything else. So shut your mouth when speaking about me, because I will expose everything I know until you fall as a little chicken. I have nothing left to lose in my life. I will tear down the entire system. Be careful with me, bitch. I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it's the last thing I do in my life. I will go all the way. I'm not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are and who your husband is. We'll take legal action against you and your pedophile husband. I have known you for 20 years. You knew I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I'm not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character. Do you know what I think about you after 20 years? And so she's saying, I know a lot about what's going on, and I'm going to expose it all. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee know that Amanda Ungaro knows this. She was likely, my opinion, she was likely talking with Democrats behind the scenes. Melania got wind that that was taking place. She has Paolo Zampoli. See how we're putting it all together now? See how we built? She had Paolo Zampoli say, you could depose me. I will talk about how it was me who introduced Melania to Donald Trump, not Epstein. I did it at the Kit Kat Club. That was me who did it at the Kit Kat Club. And then Melania goes and holds that press conference. And she's like, there are a lot of people lying about me, and these people are lying, and that people are lying. Don't believe what you hear. Don't believe, basically saying what? Don't believe the individual who was deported to Brazil. That's what you're basically saying. trust. Look at who the sources are. Look at who the sources are. This was your friend. Donald Trump made her like a ceremonial ambassador to Grenada. You hung out at all of these parties together with Amanda Ungaro. There are tons of photos. You were like close friends, it seems, for a long period of time. But is that what this is about? Is this about Ungaro and that background? We'll see.
Oh, wow.
We'll see. But Ungaro may hold the key. Because Paolo Zampoli
with
may
Michael
have talked,
Wolff.
may have said it. And think about what Amanda Ungaro was able to see. Could you imagine if a depot of Amanda Ungaro is one of the things that opens this all up even more? As I said, tick-tock, Melania. Your dark past is a surfacing.
Oh my God. Tick-tock. You don't. Stop rocking. Okay, y'all. I'm finna go to sleep. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the Melania bug bite.